Suppose, like Michael Jordan, you were the master of your game, like these faces of ASA 93. All winners, competent. Competence gained through familiarity with the battlefield and the weapons used to win. Cars, sweet and honed, to the point that they're actually, well, worn, more so than driven. Then, suddenly, the baskets are raised, the mound is moved, the ground rules shift, and the playing surface changes completely. It could be a Donnybrook today when ASA visits Brainerd International Raceway. Donnybrook, that European poetic name, was the original nomenclature of this race facility, which was built in the late 1960s. And since that time, some of the most famous names in road racing history have competed here. And today, a new chapter begins, stock cars on the 3 miles of Brainerd. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Newber. Well, ASA, for the second time in its history, takes on a road course. And it's sure to prove quite a challenge to these drivers who are used to high-banked half-mile facilities. Now, if Tim Allen can have a picture of Bob Seneca on the wall at his set, I guess that Rob Albright can wear a Tim Allen tie. So with that out of the way, what do you expect? What do you hear from these drivers about this road course?
What I hear is that this 3/4 of a mile straightaway is forcing these guys, Larry, to summon a new kind of bravado that they've never had to reach down for before. Terminal velocity about 160 miles an hour and then into an unfamiliar right-hand bend.
Now, at every ASA race, of course, it's, let's see, Sauter, Benson, and Eddie. It's the same here?
Well, not really. Mike Eddy doesn't seem to like the road courses that well yet, and some surprises up front in terms of qualifying. Mike Miller, not Butch Miller, was the 4th fastest qualifier, and Johnny Benson just seems to be able to adapt to any type of racetrack. He's on the front row.
Well, Ralph Shaheen will be joining us in the pits, as always, but before we go down there, a little bit of in-house business. These shows are co-produced by a husband and wife team, Joel and Kathy McKee, and they are proud to present the newest addition to the ASA family, Carson Elliott McKee. So, Kathy, we're doing our best without you. Let's go to Ralph.
Speaking of birthday boys, we have one on the front row. However, for the first time in 1993, he is not going to start from the pole position. That is Johnny Benson Jr. Johnny, however, was 2.4 seconds faster than the pole time in his heat race yesterday. How did you do that?
Well, we're not sure. You know, we got a little rain in qualifying, and we had a good lap. Second's still pretty good. You know, leading Reese is fast, and, you know, we're happy to be here on the front row.
Well, you know, it's my mom's birthday today, too. She's 65. How old are you, and you starting to feel a little bit? You breathing a little harder?
No, I'm not breathing a little harder. I'm just getting younger, right? No, you got to take 5 away from hers and then cut it in half.
30 years of age is Johnny Benson Jr., and maybe he can celebrate it here this afternoon with a victory at Brainerd.
You can see the clouds in the background above the starting grid. Weather's been a question this weekend, Rob.
It is not what we anticipated yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, they forecast high 70s and sunshine today. It is, in fact, a little brisk out there, just 54 degrees as we prepare to start the race. Winds 15 to 20 miles an hour, and Larry, that could play a role in the outcome of this race.
Command by committee today. The Wynn Oil Company, a big part of the ceremony. Tristan Rogers from TV, Lisa Dickinson, Miss Wins, and the president, Mark Filowitz, with Ralph.
Well, you know, the Wynn's Oil Company is one of the best friends in the AC-Delco Challenge Series. And joining us from Wynn's today, we have Tristan Rogers, one of America's biggest heartthrobs, a lovely Miss Wins, Lisa Dickinson, and, of course, Mr. Filowitz, the president and CEO of the Wynn's Oil Corporation worldwide. How about if you get us started here this afternoon at Brainerd?
Well, I'd be happy to. On behalf of the AC-Delco Challenge Series, ASA, and all the folks at Wynn's, let's go racing!
Inside of Tony Rain's machine, the ETR brokerage machine. If you are an ASA regular fan, you recognize this scene. 37 cars will fire off from the grid today. The grid will have a rolling start around this 3-mile, 5-kilometer. If you're a road racer, we're about ready to go racing with ASA. The 1993 AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it wins, it works. And by Mr. Goodwrench, the GM expert at participating GM dealerships. And by Armor All. There is a fountain of youth, and we own the patent. Today's race is classified as the Brainerd 300k, and you're looking at drama before the green flag even drops. Our pole-setting car, Leighton Reese, in the Eiton Chevrolet, Leighton's Eden Prairie Garage Chevrolet. He fires off finally, but he will not be starting on the front row, we believe, because he was not ready to roll when the grid was. Yesterday, we took a track tour of this 3-mile race course during the running of a qualifying race by Johnny Benson while he was leading.
The fastest qualifier and a road racing ringer from Minnetonka, Minnesota, the Eiton Leighton Chevrolet of Leighton Reese. And with his worst qualifying effort of the season, the Port City Berger Chevrolet of Johnny Benson Jr.
The 4 leading all-time winners of ASA are in today's race, and one of them is North Carolina's now Dick Trickle. He is flanked by Canadian Randy McDonald. He has road racing experience, and he won one of yesterday's qualifying races.
An impressive second in a 50-mile qualifying race yesterday was Jay Sauter in the KC Motorsports Ware Chevrolet. And sophomore sensation Brad Loney from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, pilots the Winnebago Chris Clark Chevrolet.
In the split-fire Spark Plugs Ford is Jeff Neal. He has improved more than any other individual driver so far this weekend. And Tony Raines in the ETR E&L Brokerage Chevrolet, he's won 1 time in his ASA career.
Campaigning as a teammate to Scott Hansen in the Wisconsin Aviation Chevrolet is Jimmy Spencer, Mr. Excitement, and the former pro football player Tom Harrington from Hendersonville, Tennessee in the BFI Customer Service Oldsmobile.
The 6th row is shared by a couple of ASA regulars, Scott Hansen, 7 career wins, and Glenn Allen with 3. Then Butch Miller and Mike Eddy, 2 former champions. The 8th row, side by side, the winner of the one and only other ASA history race on a road course, John Cadman Jr. and Harold Fair. The 9th row, John Lemke, strong in his qualifier yesterday, and Gary St. Amant. The 10th row, the 19th and 20th starting positions, another former champion, Bob Seneker, and Kent Stauffer. Not as quick on this road course as he has been on the ovals this year. Row 11, A.J. Cooper and Brad Hoyt, cars numbered 71 and 04, side by side. Then Joey Knott from Ohio and Alec Pincinot from Windsor, Ontario. The 13th row, another former champion and a Wisconsin favorite, here in the north, Dave Watson and Tony Roper. He had trouble off course during practice and qualifying. Steve Holtzhausen and Brett Bell out of California qualified among the top 10 cars spun during this qualifying race. Watch for him to move up in that Wonder Bar car. Tom Jones and Mike Miller. Mike Miller also 4th quick overall, problems in his qualifying race. The 16th row, side by side, a couple of orange painted cars, Dennis Lampman and Russ Gamester, although his wins car is orange and black. And the 17th row, the Dr. Yale Conley and David Anspaugh, the middle school principal. Row number 18 is Greg Freed and John Freeman, and the 19th row made up of Lou Gelati, who qualified but had car problems during practice and qualifying and had to be relegated to this final scratch starting position.
So interesting yesterday, Larry, during those qualifying races to watch some of the younger drivers gain confidence as the races progressed. Of course, the number 19 machine, there he is flashing into your frame. That's Randy McDonald. Now, since you last joined us on television, Randy has changed teams. He now occupies the machine that formerly was campaigned by Rick Beebe, and he won a qualifying race. Another big surprise in the qualifier was second-year driver Brad Loney, who finished a strong 3rd.
Good news for all you road racing fans. They've allowed Leighton Reese to come back up front to his front row start. Let's take a tour with Johnny Benson. Johnny Benson yesterday was the winner of one of the qualifying races. And by the way, this was done during the race as he turned the fastest lap of the weekend.
Okay, here we come out turn 4, and we're on the drag strip. It's got the green light. This looks like a red light is done. I'm not sure the speeds here, probably 150, 155, close to 160 right now, maybe 165. Lift about half the throttle, get back on the gas. Okay, now we're back full throttle. Little heel toe, third gear, real slippery through here. Wide open, apex, heavy braking, second gear, on the gas, wide open. Not sure what turn this is, already lost count. There's heavy brakes. These corners are tight and slippery. There's a lot of brakes right here. No brakes through this corner. Well, very little, I guess. This corner's slippery. All in second gear. There's third gear. Feather it through. Underneath the bridge. This corner's a heavy brake, second gear. And we come around. Hopefully we don't red light again.
And where John Benson leaves off, the field picks up. The green flag is out, and the Brainerd 300 is underway, and Dick Trickle is diving toward the inside of the relatively high bank. Corner number one at better than 165 miles an hour. That's John Benson Jr. kicking up dirt on the high side. Trickle leads through turn one, turn two. That's Leighton Reese in the Leighton Garage Chevrolet running in third position. Benson dirt tracks around corner number three of this 10-turn road course.
Dick Trickle won a qualifying race yesterday. Played foxy and cagey in doing it. He waited till the end of the race, came to the front, saved his tires, but Larry, he's saving nothing in the early going this afternoon.
This is the busiest section of the course. It's basically a series of S-turns, turns 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You see the field snaking through this section very carefully. It's actually the lowest speed section for a prolonged period of time, but probably the most tricky.
As you watch these cars, race fans, they're probably at this juncture running about 55 or 60 miles an hour. We toured the track in the pace car yesterday. Through this section at 30 miles an hour, we were sliding sideways. So don't be deceived by what appears to be relatively slow speeds. Wasn't that amazing, the description that Benson gave while touring the racetrack?
The nonchalance was absolutely staggering. By the way, this is under the pedestrian bridge or the short straightaway between turn 9 and 10. And that's the view that you would have if you were kind of clinging to the bottom of that bridge like a bat. But Holtzhausen is in the pits. That's Steve Holtzhausen, an ASA regular. Back to that Benson thing, because I agree with you. It really was something. Now, here was a man turning the fastest lap of the entire weekend and giving us that very calm, cool, and collected description of riding around the course.
Riding with Johnny Benson now as he makes his way to the inside down the long straightaway of Leighton Reese, who had eased past Benson into the second position. Trickle with him at a 7-car length advantage again. We go through that hold your breath, high-speed right-hand turn, and Bob Seneca has come on pit road this time by as well.
Steve Holtzhausen and Bob Seneca, two not necessarily retirees, but certainly ASA regular drivers executing on-scheduled pit stops. Seneca, they've had some problems with that car all week long. They've had it up on jack stands, been working on it, as have many of the ASA regular teams. This track has proven to be very demanding, and here is Benson challenging for the lead, moving to the left side of Dick Trickle. Not quite enough room. Look at how Jimmy Spencer is moving to the inside of Leighton Reese. You can see Benson's obviously looking in the rearview mirror. That white blue trim number 12, yes, it's the car that looks just like Scott Henson's car, but that is Jimmy Spencer now running in third position in today's race.
Spencer started this race in the number 9 spot. Boy, is he having fun this weekend, Larry. He's never been behind the wheel of one of these all-purpose ASA machines, but he was thrilled with the opportunity to do it. He told us that the cars react very similarly to the ones that he drives down south, only they're a little bit more responsive. There you're riding with Jimmy Spencer, started in 9th position, has already worked his way into a challenging position in 3rd. What was it he told us? He wasn't going to interrupt the points battle here today?
Yeah, Jimmy said, well, you know, I'm going to run for the lead, but I don't want to take anybody out who's going for the points. But then again, he realizes that Trickle isn't going for the points, so he said, well, we'll fight it out. Oh, and Spencer getting loose coming out of the corner. Benson looks to the inside. Now, Benson will have the advantage supposedly at the top end of the straightaway because that little sachet on Spencer's behalf will give Benson more low RPMs about right here, and he should have enough to power by at the very top end of the power band. It looks like that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, Jimmy had crew chief Howie Leddow making some major changes to this race car just before race time this morning, and apparently there were changes that are paying off, at least in the early going.
There's Leighton Reese looking to the inside of Jimmy Spencer. Incidentally, among those 4 drivers running at the top of this race, Leighton Reese is by far the most experienced road racer. And he has told Rob and I both a couple of times this week, and hey, don't you guys panic and talk about my sponsors, but don't you panic if I'm running 3rd or 4th even halfway through this race, because I'm not in it for the points. I want to win this race, and I'm very much aware that the way to do it is to stay on the pavement all day long. I'm not going to be in a hurry. Now, don't get in my way the last 10 laps.
Right. Again, we're heading into that 90-degree section of switchbacks, right, left, right. The 4th, 5th, and 6th turns. Trickle still with the slightest of advantages over Benson. There's Spencer running in the 3rd position in car number 12, and just out of frame is Leighton Reese, the fastest qualifier in car number 6. Now, Leighton, an interesting story, Larry, started the 1992 season as an ASA regular, intending to run for Rookie of the Year. Found it a lot tougher than he thought. Sat out a few races and came back for the road race and nearly won, finishing 2nd to John Padman at Mosport. Padman, meanwhile, is well back right now out of the top 5.
Jay Sauter is running in the 5th position right now, and there is Benson blowing by like he was shot from guns, going around Trickle. Wow.
And I believe that was turn number 9 and 10 underneath the bridge and out onto the main straightaway. And it was braking that got it done for Benson. Quicker out of the throttle, but quicker much back into it, and that enabled him to make that pass and take over that top position.
John Benson, who had just a miserable time qualifying this weekend, he went on the pole for the first time, but he still was 2nd quick.
Johnny Benson last year went, I believe, to a Bob Bondurant driving school, and we now have been told that Bruce Lee has retired, or Brad Hoyt in the Bruce Lee car number 04. Bruce has driven that car several times this season. Brad Hoyt was subbing this weekend because of road racing experience. Back to the Benson situation, he ran in one of the schools last year, was going to go back, Larry, this time, and was told he didn't need to. Glenn Allen off course in car number 15.
Glenn Allen Jr. off course and looked pretty heavy. He got, looks like a banner or something, or maybe a piece of the car was also pulled off from the undercarriage of the machine as Glenn Allen Jr. in the Leroy Troop machine skids off course. He's the first car here to leave the pavement, to the best of our knowledge. Of course, it's not as easy to see all the way around a 3-mile, again, 5-kilometer road course, as it is, say, Anderson, a little more difficult, isn't it?
Just a little bit. As Benson begins to stretch his lead slightly, Leighton Reese drops the right side tires off the racetrack again through that back section of this race course, and he's showing a little more restraint, Larry, early than I thought we might see from him.
All right, just to recap for you again, here again is the shot underneath the pedestrian bridge between corners 9 and 10. There's a straightaway here, and again, some changes up front. That's Jimmy Spencer getting underneath Trickle, and Leighton Reese follows suit. Trickle has slowed dramatically going into this corner the last couple of laps. It almost appears as though he's having a braking problem, Rob, because this is the 2nd corner on the track that really requires severe braking. You go down this long 3/4 mile front straightaway, you go into corner number 1, corner number 2, it doesn't require a lot of brakes. Yes, you brake hard coming out of corner number 3, but it leads to a section of the course that it's very difficult to pass on. I think Trickle is having a braking problem.
I think that's a possibility. We didn't see him run like that all day yesterday. He was solid in every corner of this race course.
Now there is John Benson Jr. Yeah, it's a road course, not an oval, but look who's leading an ASA race again in 1993. It's number 21. Back at Brainerd, Minnesota, where we would like to remind you that this telecast is a copyrighted production of Group 5 Sports, a division of Group 5 Sales Incorporated. Any use, rebroadcast, or other transmission of this telecast without the written consent of Group 5 Sports is prohibited. You're looking at race leader John Benson. Some things have developed on the course here while you were away. Leighton Reese swings out of corner number 8 in his pursuit of Benson. Glenn Allen Jr. has stopped out on course. We believe that it is between turns 7 and 8, or perhaps just past it. He was creeping very slowly. We are getting a radio report that Lou Gelati in the young Chevrolet out of Dallas, Texas, full course yellow coming out, believe it to be for Glenn Allen Jr. Lou Gelati, there's a picture of Glenn exiting his machine, but Lou Gelati is turning in a great race. Remember, he started dead last as Glenn Allen Jr. gets out to inspect what possibly could be the problem.
As we go yellow, we can give you a 5-lap or 15-mile rundown of the top 15 positions. Johnny Benson Jr. is the leader. Leighton Reese has moved back into second position. And as we suspected, Dick Trickle continues to have problems in car number 99, though he is still shown in the 4th position behind car number 12, Jimmy Spencer. 5th is Jay Sauter. 6th is Brad Loney, running in 17th position. The winner of one of yesterday's qualifying races yesterday, Randy McDonald. In 8th position, car number 5, Jeff Neal. And you and I are his honorary crew chiefs today, Larry. We'll talk about that later. 9th position, John Cadman. 10th is Butch Miller in car number 52. And Ralph, I think, is standing by in the pits with a special visitor this weekend.
Yes. Well, you know, it's amazing the people that show up at ASA races these days. Look at this. We got Richard Childress here with us. Now, what brings you to Brainerd in an ASA race?
Well, you know, I come up, you know, Mike Eddy's sponsored by GM Goodwrench, and we come up to watch him race. You know, we follow the ASA racing back home, and it's good to be up here and see it firsthand.
What do you think of the series so far?
Well, you know, the cars have really changed in the last couple of years. They've went to the full-body cars, and they really look neat. These guys have really got some neat-looking race cars.
You know, I also understand this is a pretty special day for you. Anybody you want to say hello to back in Welcome, North Carolina?
Yeah, happy anniversary to my wife, Judy.
Well, you know, it's their 28th wedding anniversary. I think it's pretty nice of her to let you out of the house to come up here, go fishing, and go racing. Congratulations to you.
Ralph, you just hit it. He's not up here for the racing. He's up here for the fishing. This is a resort area supreme. If you are interested in the outdoor life, particularly in the summertime, and this is a very lush area, it's a little isolated, but that is the charm of it. And it is remarkable that there is such a world-class professional road racing facility up here. We mentioned at the top of the show, it was built in the late 1960s, and in the early 1970s, the racetrack went public. And since that time, they've just had some really fabulous road races up here. This was one of the favorite tracks of one of my favorite all-time divisions in motor racing, the world's fastest race cars in history, the old traditional Can-Am series. Well, as Tom Jones sits in the pits, the racetrack is yellow. John Benson continues to lead. We'll give you a break, and be sure to patronize these people as they're bringing you this race.
Welcome back to Brainerd, Minnesota, the AC-Delco Challenge Series event here. A little bit of a problem for Dick Trickle. Now, they have changed tires on the number 99, and you can hear him starting and cutting the engine on and off. The problem is somewhere in the motor. They're not sure exactly what. They were questioning as to whether or not it was a spark plug, a rocker arm problem. They're not sure exactly what the problem is. They are going to go ahead and change tires on both sides of the car and take a guess. And right now, that is exactly what it is, strictly a guess as to what the problem is in the motor.
Dave Watson and Brett Bell went by as we were listening to that report from Ralph on Trickle. There's Glenn Allen Jr. They have removed the car from the racing surface, got it as far away as they possibly could, but very dejected young Glenn Allen from Cincinnati, Ohio, one of the few winners in 1993 on the American Speed Association Trail.
In fact, in 6 races, we've had 5 different winners. That's the most we've had since 1987 in the early going of the season. There's the number 99 Arctic Cat machine of Dick Trickle going behind the wall, so apparently the problems are severe. Whether or not he'll be able to rejoin the race remains to be seen. Talking about Glenn Allen Jr., what frustration. You know, the peaks and the valleys of motorsports, that team expected great things this year, and they did show for a while. At Cayuga winning the race from 24th starting position. The very next race, it was our last one at Flint, started well in the back and finished 3rd. They really hope to do well this weekend, but it's not going to be the case. And you can see the dejection registered on that young face.
The field is anticipating a green flag this time around. They're coming to that straightaway there just before the main straightaway. And they were told 1 lap the next time. There's Jeff Neal. He has moved to the high side of John Benson Jr. The pace car is signaling Jeff, and not exactly certain what they're telling him.
Well, I think he's anticipating a pit stop, Larry. That's what he's doing. He's being motioned around to bring that machine on pit road. Now, we had shown Jeff running in the 6th position yesterday when we watched him in the garage area. We said, hey, Jeff, how's come your spoiler is laid down so much flatter than everybody else's? And he scratched his chin, kind of perplexed, and started banging up on the spoiler, came back in after.
I didn't think of that.
That's right. And was about 2.5 seconds faster the next time he went out on the racetrack. So you guys are my honorary crew chiefs this weekend.
Well, our car is in the pit area right now, and really a big surprising moment because Jeff was running comfortably in the top 10. He had actually moved up to 7th before the most recent full course yellow, our first full course yellow, that is to say. And now this race restarts with Jeff in the pits. It'll take the drivers about 1 minute 45 seconds to get around. We've got a challenge up front. Back to that in second. There's Leighton Reese, who said, don't be surprised if I lay back. Well, Leighton looks like he wants to take the lead. Very carefully in that right-hander there around turn number 3, headed for turn number 4. That'll be a left-hander, then to a series of S's before we get back to the straighter sections of the course.
And Jimmy Spencer uses the fact that Benson was forced out of the groove to slide in behind Leighton Reese. Spencer back to second position. Now Benson drops to third as we continue to work our way through turns 5 and now into 6.
This race will be 180 miles on a 3-mile course. That translates, yep, I bet you figured that out, didn't you? 60 laps. Now, I know those of you at home who are familiar with ASA cars are used to an ASA car maybe going at least 90 miles, sometimes as much as 100 on a load of fuel, so you're thinking, one pit stop. Well, the long straightaway here, 3/4 of a mile right in front of the main grandstand, really gobbles up gas. And I didn't talk to anybody who felt they could go the distance on one pit stop. They all anticipated 2. And obviously the race divides right nicely into thirds, 20 laps, 20 laps, and 20 laps. We'll see how it's played out. Obviously, full course yellows have a lot to do with pit stop strategy.
It's interesting, Larry, that fuel consumption has become the area of concern. When the weekend began, it was tires that were the big question mark. The folks at Goodyear developing a new compound for here at Brainerd, and only the second ASA road race, but they have been thrilled with the performance of the Goodyear Racing Eagles this weekend. And there's a good battle for position. You're looking at Scott Hansen in car number 53 in the 22 machine, and that is Mike Miller. Now, Mike is one of a handful of drivers who's taken some road racing lessons, if you will, has never competed in a road racing event before. He started well back in the pack, 30th. He's come all the way to 13th since
that's not true. He told me he has been in a road race.
Oh, he did?
In a go-kart when he was 15 years of age.
Oh. And that's a long time ago.
It's true. But Mike in that blue and yellow Gillen Enterprises car, he has been very strong, visually very aggressive all week long. And he qualified near the front of the field, had a car problem in his qualifying race yesterday, and he has really moved to the front. He and Lou Gelati, who we're looking at right now, that young Chevrolet number 18. And by the way, there are reasons for the number and color on this car. You know the reason for the number 18? The car happens to be owned by, an ASA historian, Mike Miller. He's the owner of the car, and the red is from a year ago. This is the Gary St. Amant machine from the 1992 campaign. So there's a melting pot there, and Lou Gelati, who had a disaster or near disaster in his qualifying race yesterday, is really making up for lost time today. Meanwhile, more from Ralph.
You know, Larry, it's not unusual for teams to be as close to their parts bins if they need them. Well, here at Brainerd, it's a long way back to the normal paddock area for the teams. So some of the crews like Mike Eddy have brought their tractor trailers all the way down to the far end of pit lane. In fact, take a look at what Mike did. He brought a second car and a second trailer with him. This one is scheduled to go all the way up to Calgary for next weekend. But if he needs a few extra parts, he's got a backup car here and 2 trailers full.
Well, what do you suppose the difference is? About 150 pounds on the left side as opposed to the center of the car?
Well, when we talk to these drivers, that was a crucial element in this race. Of course, uncharacteristically for ASA cars, a lot more right-hand turns, 8 as opposed to 2 going their more familiar left-hand direction. So the weight balance was kind of a point of consternation on pit road throughout the weekend. Mike Eddy is running a surprising, and I should say, that 8th position. If you're used to watching us run on ovals, you'd say it's surprising because he's so far back. But since he has not yet been able to get a real comfort level with the road courses, I'm surprised, Larry, that he's running that well.
Well, what has happened with Mike is Mike started the race in 14th position, and I think he recognizes that for one of the few occasions he's likely not in a winning profile situation. That's unusual for Mike. So what he's done, as you can see, his season finishes so far, a raft of top 10s. He has decided that if I stay on course, a lot of this race is going to come back to me. And who knows, if a full course yellow comes at the end, he still might have a chance. I think it's a pretty bright drive himself.
And Mike Eddy in that Goodwrench Pontiac will shortly have his hands full as Lou Gelati and Mike Miller are closed right in behind him. Gelati's the story of the weekend. That car was so out to lunch on Friday and Saturday, it did not appear to handle well at all. Gelati qualified very poorly, and obviously his road racing experience has helped dramatically in getting that car set up for this race today.
Lou Gelati has a lot of experience in sedans on a road course. He came out of the Corvette Challenge. He had done a lot of club racing before that. He has run several of the showroom stock divisions in both the Sports Car Club of America and IMSA, so this is not new to him at all. He really came to this race expecting to do quite well. It's taken a while for him to gain a little momentum, but boy, he certainly has. We are 1/6 of the way through this race already. Harold Fair.
Harold Fair, who's had an up-and-down season in 1993, surprisingly on pit road in car number 81, the Handy Wax Chevrolet. Handy Wax is birdcage liners and sandwich wrappers and so forth. Harold from Detroit, Michigan, another driver that is not expected to do particularly well on the road course, though he is having a good time out there.
Harold Fair returning back to the track. Remember, twice a runner-up in the points championship of the American Speed Association. Up front, things have really calmed down. You get the feeling that Leighton Reese and Johnny Benson are running about where they want to be. That's the number 12 car of Jimmy Spencer running third, and running fourth is Jay Sauter. He's had a good weekend. He has not earned this fourth running position at this point in the race through attrition.
Larry, you're taking a look at the crew of Jeff Neal working inside the left front wheel. What they're doing is replacing the water cooler mounts. That broke on Neal's car, forcing him into pit lane. They feel that once they get the mounts fixed and replaced, they can get the water cooler back in there just fine and get Jeff back in the race and hopefully pick up some points here at Brainerd.
Well, Rob, you mentioned Jeff Neal's weekend. He started 9th in his qualifier race yesterday, meaning he was heat race number 1, which meant he was the 17th overall fastest qualifier. But he finished 3rd in his qualifying race, and he came into today with a great deal of confidence. But this is a demanding course. You're on the throttle for about a mile and a half, all the way from corner number 10 through corner number 2. There are a couple of very quick breeze of the throttle through corner 1 and corner number 2. This is corner number 1 right now. That first Benson, and then he is followed by Leighton Reese. They've just changed the lead again. We didn't call it because they've been trading it back and forth. Corner number 2, probably the trickiest turn on the racetrack. It doesn't look like it so much from the TV camera because that has a tendency to slow the action down. No, that was corner number 3. I stand corrected.
And Larry, that's a great battle there for 4th position. It's Jay Sauter in car number 1, but Brad Loney, what a surprise he has been as he's just improved every lap of this race course all weekend long in car number 33. Last year, Brad was the runner-up in the Rookie of the Year point standings. Steve Holzhausen has gone through a couple of different sponsors this year before settling with the Winnebago people and Chris Clark. And this is the best run that we've seen from him in all of 1993. He had a 2nd place finish, or a 3rd place finish in the Anderson 400 last year, a track totally different from this one, a 1/4 of a mile high-backed race course. So Brad's showing that he has the adaptability of any type of racetrack. He is a strong young talent.
Without question, Loney in the Winnebago Chris Clark Chevrolet has been the biggest surprise of the weekend. A lot of ASA drivers have come a long ways, like that man right there. Jay Sauter really has shown some improvement in that Delco Voyager Chevrolet, but no one really anticipated that Loney would come on as strong as he has. He's really had a very good weekend.
Speaking of Jay Sauter, had a disastrous opening race of the year. It looked so good till the last 11 laps when he tangled with Mike Eddy and took him out of contention. Finished 20th, and he's had to battle his way back. Now currently 5th in the point standings, yet his best finish this year has been a 4th in the Badgerland 150 at Milwaukee.
You're looking back inside the top 15 cars. There comes the number 19 car, Brandon McDonald by John Lemke. He's had a good weekend. He is running ahead of Mike Eddy, running 8th, 9th, and 10th place car is Mike Miller. You wonder, has Mike punished his tires a little bit getting to where he is? Lou Gelati was also in that group. But there's a strong group of cars, and don't count out any of those drivers that we just looked at running 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th.
There are 2 guys that are having a literal ball on the racetrack. Leighton Reese has just reappropriated the top spot from Johnny Benson Jr. And I think it's a function of the way that the respected drivers, Larry, have chosen to set their race cars up. There's certain places on this racetrack, as you and I have discussed, that Benson's car just seems to work better. Other locations that Leighton has the advantage. That time Leighton slips off, and it's this back part of the racetrack that lap after lap, Benson seems to dominate.
Leighton may be violating a little bit of his own rules that he tried to create for himself before this race began. He said he was going to ride, hopefully to stay within the top 3 or top 4 the first 2/3 of this race. Whenever you go off course, you really threaten to damage one of those tires, and it's a very easy way to develop a flat tire in just a few laps.
That was a great shot. You saw them flash under that pedestrian and automobile bridge that goes over the racetrack outside of turn number 9. These guys get just a bit out of shape. They could hammer that bridge hard. So that is another hold your breath area of this racetrack. And now Benson begins to stretch it by about 10 car lengths.
And like with most ASA drivers, that orange car they went around on the Wins Lumina, that is, of course, Russ Gamester, participating in his 3rd day on a road course in a race car. There's Kent Stauffer trying to stay on course. It's not that easy. We're at a road course. Here you're looking at the battle for first place, and it's as it has been for much of the last 15 minutes, side by side. That's Leighton Reese. Yeah, if you're an ASA regular, remember he ran a lot of ASA races last year, an acknowledged road course expert. And of course, the red and white number 21, the Berger Valvoline Chevrolet of John Benson Jr. They have been the dominant cars of the weekend. They qualified in the front row. Leighton kind of took the day off on his qualifying race. Pulled off track about 2 or 3 laps in. Johnny was headed for an easy victory, had a flat tire in the last couple of laps, and ended up losing that race to Dick Trickle. But these have been the main men so far this week.
We've seen several drivers come on pit road to change tires. Not a problem with the tires, a problem with rocks on course. You can see Leighton Reese a couple of laps ago get off the track. A lot of rocks and gravel right off the edge of the racing surface, and when they kick it up on there and the tires go over them, it very often will cause a cut. There again, you're continuing to look at Leighton Reese, who for the moment is the leader as he and John Benson have swapped it back and forth. And we'll watch that battle. A quick rundown. 3rd is Spencer, 4th is Jay Sauter, 5th Brad Loney, 6th John Cadman, who won at Mosport last year on television. 7th is the number 19 car, Randy McDonald. 8th is John Lemke, a great run for this youngster, and we've got another full course.
Joey Knott has spun off course now. Don't know if that's full course or not. That is one of
I think it's a local.
CRA corner workers signaling Joey where he is sitting. It looks like it was one of those hard spins. There is a difference between just a minor excursion off course. If you get off course, you can sometimes hit little rills or valleys out there, and it can really do some serious damage to the undercarriage of the machine. And Joey's car looks like it's on the ground. You see the steam coming from the left rear tire. That's probably water. Here's Joey getting on the high side of the track on that right-hander, comes all the way across the track, hits the dirt reasonably hard. The CRA corner workers scrambling around, although he did not seem to make any contact with anything down there. By the way, when we say CRA, I know a lot of you fans out there are thinking, oh, the California Racing Association, what's all that about? No, it's the Central Road Racing Association. Those are the corner workers, and there's Alec Pinsino for about the 3rd time, by our best count, who has skidded off the course again. He's got a very seriously flat tire this time, so I don't think we can blame Alec for that. Up front here, the leaders. Things going on all over the racetrack and in the pit area, where Ralph is standing by with a little bit of an update. Ralph?
Larry, we've had a driver change in the number 91 BFI entry. This is the guy who's normally behind the wheel, Tom Harrington. How come you're out?
Well, I had a little accident in the pits Friday and tore a cartilage in my knee. Went to the hospital this morning. They checked it out and requested that I not drive, and it is real sore. I can't bend my knee, and it's hard to get my foot on the clutch. So we decided to turn the car over to Dick Danielson. He's a real experienced road racer, has a lot of laps here at Brainerd, so I'm hoping he'll bring the BFI car home and get me some points.
Well, the next question is, do you think it'll be okay for Calgary in just 1 week?
Well, we'll get her checked out tomorrow down in Nashville and see what it's like.
Well, Johnny Benson, as you see, has just retaken the lead from Leighton Reese. Meanwhile, just a few seconds behind them, Brad Loney continues to challenge Jay Sauter for 4th position. And Larry, it looks like Jimmy Spencer is displaying some uncharacteristic patience. He's the man lying in wait for the mistake that would allow him to take over that point.
Spencer, Reese, and Benson all told us they were going to wait, but I agree with you. Only Spencer appears to be following that advice. There is Brad Loney challenging Jay Sauter. You really have to like the weekend and the performance of this young Loney fellow in the red Chevrolet number 33. Brad Loney completely surprised all of us, as he did a year ago when no one really saw him coming when he came to ASA as a rookie last year and just had some outstanding performances.
Well, qualifying on Saturday was a bit unusual, or Friday, I should say, out of the normal ordinary AC-Delco Challenge Series format. They ran practice sessions. Each lap was timed, and then the groups were divided. The fastest 20 cars and the slower 20 cars, as Alec Pinsino has finally made his way onto pit road in car number 93. The fastest 20 qualified as a group, with each lap being timed. Loney was not even among the top 20 in qualifying, and yesterday in his 50-mile qualifying race, he just got stronger and stronger and stronger, finishing third in that event.
There's the number 91 BFI Oldsmobile that Ralph was just talking about a few moments ago. That is the veteran road racer, Dick Danielson, now behind the wheel. Dick Danielson has run many Trans Am races. He has a lot of experience on this track, and Benson probably is not aware, or perhaps he knows now that he's gone by to find out that that is not the familiar friend of his, Tom Harrington. But Danielson will give this car a good ride. The other thing about Danielson is he's a very careful race driver, too. And I can guarantee he'll bring the car home. While we were giving that commentary about Dick Danielson, you saw the Lou Gelati number 18 Chevrolet being pushed behind the pit wall, the Young's Chevrolet of Dallas, Texas. After a great ride, Gelati started dead last in this race, and he appeared to be moving to the front. He had ascended to the top 10 before that little maneuver that has put him behind the pit wall. It was mechanical, not a driver error or crash out on track.
Remember earlier when car number 84, the Bob Seneker kinetic engines machine, came on pit road under green? Well, he was able to rejoin the race without losing a lap. We went to caution. He now has battled his way back through the field, Larry, and he's just passed Mike Eddy for, I believe, the 9th position, and now he'll go to work on young John Lemke.
Well, remember a year ago at Mosport, the two most outstanding ASA regular performers on the road course by far were Benson and Seneker. I think they came home second and third in that race to Canadian John Cadman, who we haven't seen that much of today. He qualified strong. He started up front, but Cadman not running the same machine, although out of the same stable. The car that Cadman won the road race in a year ago at Mosport near Bowmanville, Ontario, that is the car that Scott Hansen is piloting this week, but neither Hansen or Cadman have challenged for the top spot today.
John Cadman currently shown in the 6th position. We've got Scott Hansen on the lead lap and running 13th. And again, that is that battle for 8th position between John Lemke and Bob Seneker. Seneker, one of the drivers here, though he's noted for his oval experience, that does have some laps on a road circuit. In fact, he won an open competition stock car race a number of years ago in Watkins Glen, New York.
I think I've said it before in these broadcasts. Bob Seneker has astounded me many times in his career. I had no idea that Bob Seneker could run on dirt. About 20 years ago, I went to a race at the then High Bank Dirt Queen City Speedway, then called Tri-County, and I expected Seneker to have his head handed to him on a platter by all the regulars like Rodney Combs and a fellow by the name of McWilliams, who was doing very well at that point down there, Pat Patrick. Seneker won the race.
Bob has not lost his sense of humor all weekend, despite the fact that he's battled a whole host of mechanical problems, including losing an engine yesterday. He had a transmission problem late in the afternoon. That had to be replaced. Apparently they've got things sorted out now as we've completed. This time by, it will be 20 of our 60 laps, so reaching the 1/3 mark of this event.
And remember, you get to the point now where these drivers are thinking, okay, if I'm going to have to make 2 pit stops, now is the first time I can do it safely. Now, how far can they go? There's a lot of fuel coming out of John Freeman's car. Apparently, John has made a recent pit stop. That what it appeared to be was fuel spilling out of the filler of Freeman's car. There's Lemke. This is a battle for position. Back to the pit stop situation in just a second. John Lemke trying to find the right place to pass Mike Eddy. This is a tough place to pass on this twisty, turning portion of the racetrack. Again, it's turns 4 through 9, 4 through 8 make it. And we've had somebody off course in front of the battle. It's Seneker. So Bob Seneker, who was feeling his oats, plows a few oats as he plows off the racetrack, entering the high speed. Oh, and another spin. This is Scott Hansen and their road racer. Hansen spins in front of Seneker. Great sound effect. You heard that one. The screeching tires appears to be corner number 7 here on the race course.
Scott Hansen has slid to a halt outside the racetrack. You can see that machine is not under power. He's trying to get it refired. There's no reason, if he's able to get it going, that he can't drive right back out on the race course. Scott had moved up into the 8th position in car number 53, kind of been mired back mid-pack through most of the race, and still has not been able to get that machine underway. Again, here is the front of the field. You can see that there are 2 cars there. The number 6 of Leighton Reese has fallen for the time being, a little off the pace. It's now Jimmy Spencer who's giving the challenge to Johnny Benson Jr. We talked about him showing some patience and waiting. Now he's going to make his move.
Well, it's possible that both Benson and Reese punished their tires. Remember, Leighton had that off-course excursion. Leighton is not even in the picture. Leighton Reese is not even in the picture. Yellow flag is coming out. We're going to go full course yellow again. These guys will race back to the flag, though. Spencer is going to want to lead this lap if he can. They're more than 2/3 of the way past or around this course. There is the turn number 8. The 9th turn is coming up. You'll see them flashing under the pedestrian bridge here just momentarily. There's a straightaway. There is John Lemke who stopped on course. So we have at least 2 cars, maybe more. That's under the bridge right there. You can see Spencer goes by, Benson goes by. They'll look for the yellow flag at the start-finish line this time by. It is lap number 20, and I would not be at all surprised to see some drivers pit, because just about everyone, at least to a man that I've spoken to, they have committed themselves to a 2-stop race.
Well, you can see the leaders. They have just flashed past the entrance to pit road. It is closed. They were told in the drivers' meeting that the first time by, pit road would be closed, as poor Alec Pinstonow has looped again in car number 93. And there's Scott Hansen's car number 53. Still, the Wisconsin Aviation Chevrolet not able to get going under its own power.
There's Glenn Allen's car sitting at the top, and Bob Seneker spinning on the horizon there on the right-hand side of your screen. He does it 360, gets back on the throttle. Eddie goes by. Oh, Seneker gets out as John Freeman goes by, and then Scott Hansen, perhaps thinking about how proud he was having just missed Bob Seneker, miscues going into corner number 7. He himself spins around.
And that was a race for position. Larry, when have you seen John Freeman, a newcomer to ASA Oval Track Racing, racing with Scott Hansen and Bob Seneca?
Well, we knew going into the 1992 season that John Freeman was an acknowledged road racer. He would be looking for his best career finish if he could pull off a top 10 today here at Brainerd, Minnesota, the 300K, or 180 miles of Brainerd. If you're near Park Rapids or Long Prairie or Little Falls or Pine River, you must be near Brainerd, Minnesota. Yep, this is part of the land of 10,000 lakes. However, they are suffering near federal disaster flooding here in this state because of the harsh winter and the very heavy rains. A lot of the interstates are closed and the farmers are losing crops. Interstates may be closed, but boy, is the pit open. And like everybody and his brother is coming into pit road. You're going to be busy here, Ralph. Go for it.
Larry, we're all set as everybody on pit lane is expecting to make a full stop here. They will take fuel and 4 tires. Now, we are all the way down at the far end of pit lane, the closest stops to turn number 1. It is about 3/4 of the way down the front straightaway, so it takes a long time to get here. Here you see Johnny Benson's car coming in. Chris Bradley and the crew already working on the right side tires. Again, it will be a 4-tire stop. Just coming around him now, the number 88 Goodwrench Pontiac of Mike Eddy. Take a look who's wiping the windshield. Richard Childress on vacation? No, sir. You work for Goodwrench, you help your teammates out, and he is going to work trying to clean the windshield. And he said to tell Hank Jones that he doesn't have anything to worry about. Hank's job is secure cleaning Dale Earnhardt's windshield. Richard goes back over the wall. They will come around and change the left side tires now on the Goodwrench Pontiac. Benson's car already just about service completed back there. Left side tires just about finished. Fuel is already in Benson's car. Here comes Leighton Reese. Benson comes out right behind him.
I would think, Rob, that this stop was Jay Sauter as the first one out of the pits. He'll be our race leader, I believe, when we go back to green. I would suggest that this pit stop was probably a little more important for that man right there in the Eaton Chevrolet, Leighton Reese, than anybody else. He'd been off course a couple of times. Now, perhaps Benson had been off course, perhaps Spencer. We didn't see it, but I know that Leighton was off. He had slowed down considerably before this full course yellow. I think he really needed this.
He needed the pit stop that he got for another reason. As you're looking at the car number 24 of John Lemke, the youngster from Minnesota who had been running in the top 10. But Leighton Reese has not been running regularly with ASA. For his crew to get him in and out more quickly than Benson is a big surprise.
John Lemke, who's had a good weekend, looks like it may well be over as we continue under a full course yellow here at Brainerd, Minnesota. It's a road course, but so far the ASA drivers have put on a pretty good show. Yesterday's races were terrific. This one's going to be good too. Racing Electronics, the official supplier of communications equipment to the American Speed Association, is giving you an opportunity to feel like you're a part of this team. Rob and I will be drawing the name of one lucky race fan during each of these televised races on the remaining ASA schedule. And that winner will receive a Unident Bearcat scanner from Racing Electronics, along with a 1-year Racers Frequency membership. Now, to enter, as we go back to green, we'll get back to that in just a second. You send your name and address in a postcard. 2, we'll come back to that in a second. We'll document the return to green flag of this race. Caught us all a little bit by surprise. We are believing that John Freeman is the race leader. He did not pit in that red-white Toyota Pine Chevrolet number 16. And remember, yes, John Freeman has not run up front all that often on the road on the ovals, but John Freeman knows what he's doing on a road course.
That's car number 12 that you saw getting just a little bit off course. Jimmy Spencer in car number 12. He did have the fastest pit stop among those that were in the lead pack prior to the caution period. And there you see, battling back in the pack, there's Leighton Reese, Jay Sauter, and behind them, Johnny Vincent.
Is that Spencer that's gone off? That is definitely one of the Jerry Gundeker, Scott Hansen cars. The 3 cars, Cadman, Hansen, and Spencer, all look alike. And I believe that was Jimmy Spencer.
Definitely was. He'll now have to dice with a number of cars back in the pack. Oh. Look at Mike Miller, Jimmy Spencer.
Excuse me, move over.
Now, on a road course, 3 wide, in a 90-degree turn, and
Spencer's off
course.
Jimmy Spencer for the second time on this restart lap. There's Dr. Yale Conley. He was running behind that pack of cars that you were just looking at. He has spun, but Spencer creating some drama for himself here as we go back to green. Remember those off-course turns? Not good in the tire.
Spencer really hasn't lost a lot of ground as a result. He's given up about 4 or 5 positions. You can see there that the John Lemke car was causing some maybe consternation on the part of the officials as they were towing it off the race course.
I think we all felt that this track would remain a full course yellow until Lemke's car was removed, but that's not the way it was worked, as you're looking at Spencer moving underneath Mike Miller. Remember, that's Mike Miller in the Gillen Enterprises blue and yellow number 22. I know that's not the number you're accustomed to seeing. His traditional number 18 started this race today, but it was road racer Lou Gelati who came up from the back but dropped out.
The patience that we have seen from Jimmy Spencer in the early going, gone with the wind at this point, as he is being very aggressive in his quest to move back to the front. He got such a great pit stop, he's got to be frustrated and feeling that he is the reason the car has dropped several positions.
Well, what happens is, look at all the fuel spilling out of the number 19 car of Randy McDonald. There was a lot coming off the last lap, and it looks like the filler cap is not even on, Rob.
I don't think there is a filler cap. It may be a situation where the mechanism that is pressed in when the fuel tank is placed in the race car may not be functioning properly. It may not. It's a spring-loaded mechanism, and it may not be coming all the way back out, and it is allowing some fuel to escape. So we'll keep an eye on that machine of Randy McDonald. There's the 22 of Mike Miller. Remember, he was 4th fastest in timed qualifying runs on Friday. Had a rear gear problem yesterday during the running of his race. Started from 30th and has been strong all day.
Tony Raines, familiar name, one-time winner on the American Speed Association Trail, is slowing out on course, and the radio is telling us as Greg Freed has not only spun, but he's coming into contact with something or somebody. There is Raines. We were just talking about him, but that's Greg Freed in the black number 83 sitting sideways in the course. There's Tony again, and the radio tells us that the Clean Burn Multi-Oil Furnaces sponsored car today has lost the cylinder, and you can see Tony sitting there not even honking on the gear shift, which you're normally doing at this section of the race course. Tony trying to work his way back around in the pits. He does give it all the appearances, though, that he perhaps is going to stay out there as long as he can.
I just watched that time past the start-finish line. Randy McDonald got the black flag from the official starter, so obviously there is a problem with the fueling system on car number 19.
Dennis Lampman, Porta-John. Ford-powered race car, the Ford-bodied machine, Barricade Flasher, one of his traditional sponsors, and the Slantman from Racine. That's in Wisconsin, not that far away. He spins coming out of corner number 10. That's the corner that separates the 2 straightest sections of this race course. Remember the front stretch, A.J. Cooper, damage, as a lot of cars are slipping and sliding off the racetrack. A.J., this would be his second off-track trip of the weekend. You can see damage to the right front, obviously at least a flat tire and maybe even a bent wheel.
Well, what we saw lying out on the racetrack when Greg Creed spun, you could see it was the tail section of the GCF Motorsports Chevrolet car number 83. That has been extricated from the racing surface, but it does not look like A.J. Cooper and that Bob Morton Enterprises car will be able to get going. Look at Mike Miller in car number 22. He had run so strongly all afternoon, and with all these cars sliding all over the racetrack, we will once again go back to a full course yellow condition.
Have you ever seen in a rundown the reason for retirement? Drowning? I think that's what the problem is with the number 22 car. Mike is in the very deep casual water. If this were a golf course, that's what we call it. We've had, as you pointed out, Rob, at least 3 cars that have gone off course, and 2 of them, I think, are stopped somewhere out there or stuck. And what a disappointing and crushing moment for Mike Miller. Mike Miller, I believe, was a candidate to win this race at one time this weekend. He had that limited experience from the driver's school. He seemed to pick up more at the Bob Bondurant driving school down at Firebird Raceway near Phoenix than any of the other drivers. He looked very strong, and he had a lot of confidence coming into the race. Now, Ralph is standing by down in the pits, of course, as he has been all day, and Johnny Benson is our race leader. But, Ralph, I understand you've got some information about Mr. Benson.
You know, Larry, the old saying, you'd rather be lucky than good. Look at this. That last caution flag came at the right time for Johnny Benson Jr. He had a hole in his tire that was going flat rapidly. That allowed him to come in and change that tire and get him back out onto the racetrack and not lose this race. Let's point out a couple of things about these Goodyear bias fly tires that we're running here this afternoon at Brainerd. The reason why the ASA Series runs a bias fly tire is because it's more cost effective. We can run 1, maybe 2, 3 sets of these as opposed to what it would cost to run 1 set of radial tires. A lot cheaper for the competitors. The problem is the bias fly tire is subject to stones cutting the tire surface. It's a bit of a softer tire. Here at Brainerd, there's a lot of stones in the sand and gravel around this racetrack. That's not what we had at Mosport. That's why we're seeing more cut tires here this afternoon than last year.
Really good point, Ralph. There is, uncharacteristically, you would not expect there to be a lot of sandy loam. It even goes beyond that. It's just downright sand up here in this area. Pine trees, they really proliferate, but there's a lot of sand here, and that's really abrasive to tires. Now, back to remember our Racing Electronics giveaway. All of you have an opportunity to win not only a Bearcat scanner, but a 1-year Racers Frequency membership just by sending your name to Racing Electronics, Box GFS, 8701 Mallard Creek Road in Charlotte, North Carolina, 28262. Racing Electronics, Box GFS, 8701 Mallard Creek Road. And today's winner is Denise Stowasser of Chesapeake, Ohio. Congratulations, Denise Stowalker of Chesapeake. That's in Ohio. Your Racing Electronics scanner is on the way. We'll be back on our way after this. Back at Brainerd, Minnesota, and a very dejected Mike Miller looking for maybe the Coast Guard, maybe a life raft. It's a very unusual reason to be knocked out of a race. You get stuck in heavy, standing, deep water. It's very wet out there. We mentioned earlier in the show, there's John Lemke in the Valvoline number 24 Ford Thunderbird. There's been a lot of rain out here. It was a harsh winter, a lot of melting, particularly in the higher elevations, and the climate, of course, is very medium up here at this time of the year, and the water doesn't evaporate and burn off, and as a consequence, they're really having a difficult time up here, and it's particularly hard on the farmers, and we certainly send all of our best wishes along to them, because like in every other state that's got a lot of rural communities, the farming industry is very important to them, and boy, they sure could use some help, and maybe even a little help from the man upstairs this time of the year.
Well, there are your leaders. A couple of the men in that lead file have chosen yet another time to come on pit road with this caution flag. Not so for Johnny Benson. He's your leader in car number 21. Jay Sauter in the black and green car runs second, and Jimmy Spencer, despite his off-course excursions, occupies third position. Road racer John Cadman is fourth in car number 76. Fifth is the 16 machine of John Freeman. In sixth position is Bob Seneker's car number 84. Mike Eddy is seventh in car number 88. Eighth position, the 77 of Dave Watson. Running ninth is Harold Fair's car number 81. And the 10th position is car number 53, Scott Hansen. And we have completed 27 of our 60 laps, so very rapidly approaching the halfway point of the race.
Which brings us, of course, to the subject of the Wins Halfway Challenge, and everybody, of course, hopes that that one is won at speed. And not under a yellow flag, but we are kind of anticipating the green flag to return to action this time around. There is corner number 6. The field is traversing right now in the what we call the back half of this race course. Incidentally, if you were wondering about this pit stop situation, most of the drivers feel as though if they go 90 miles, they're stretching it on a load of fuel. We told you the long front stretch really gobbles up the fuel here. So if you back time it from the end of the race, that means about lap 60, if they pitted there, they would probably attempt to go the distance. Lap, let's see, 3 miles times.
That's right.
Where am I at? We're going to go
lap,
60,
lap 40.
Lap 40, yes, sir. Thank you very much. Basic grade school math there. Okay, lap 40. That's about the last moment, or the earliest moment, I should say, that the field feels as though they could pit. Obviously, if they pit after that, they can go the distance. But that's going to bring up some very interesting decisions for the field to be making in about 10 laps.
You've had a lot of cautions, Larry. Do you take a chance if we're still running under green at that 40 or so lap mark? Do you stay out there, stretch it? We've seen so many times in different forms of motorsport that calculated risk of waiting till the last possible moment to come on pit road, or do you assume that sometime during that last 20 laps of this race there will be a caution?
You know, in other forms of racing, crews make those decisions based on computer readouts, and I'm sure if there was a computer down there, they'd say, yeah, we're not going to go more than 10 laps at any time today without a full course yellow. So I'd say the computer would suggest, yeah, that's probably a good bet to assume that sometime after lap 40, or 2/3 of the way through this race, there will be a full course yellow. Seems risky, though. If I were a veteran road racer, I would think that as the tires go away and the cars get tired, I'm going to be able to carry my car, if I'm a veteran road racer, better than a lot of the ASA regulars who have such limited experience. For many of these drivers, this is only the second time in their life they've ever been on a road course in competition.
And in all the excitement of about 5 laps ago, we missed one departure from this race. A very disappointed Brad Loney is out of competition in car number 33. We have not yet been informed what the cause of him dropping out of this event was, but Brad had run very strongly, was in 5th position at the time that he dropped out of the race. You're looking at Butch Miller in car number 52, the driver of the Liberty Ford Thunderbird, a former 2-time American Speed Association national champion, kind of returned to the fold of ASA at Flint, Michigan 2 weeks ago. His most recent ASA event had been a long time since Butch had run ASA, qualified 3rd, ran 4th, so he hasn't lost a step.
Speaking about Butch Miller, he's really a topic of conversation these days because Butch is making his return to the American Speed Association. He is one of the all-time leading winning drivers in the American Speed Association. He has won 36 times. He spent most of the last couple of years running stock cars down south, but just recently he has decided to come back to ASA racing. Ralph?
Well, as you said, Larry, Butch had gone away for a few years to try his hand in a couple of other divisions. He is back here. The ASA had the opportunity to hang out the welcome home banners. And Butch had been keeping an eye on the ASA series. And when the opportunity arose to come back, he jumped at the chance.
Well, our plans are to run all the races but one for the rest of the year. Now, we've only got, at the moment, we've only got 1 car and 1 motor. So if I goof up, you know, we might change those plans. However, we're kind of in a good position because I've got a very good car and I don't have to set it up. If I break in a race, so what? I'm not in it for the points. I'm in it for the win. So we get to go for all the wins and the rest of the guys get to chase the points.
You come back to the series now when things have changed. What's your opinion of the new series?
Well, I've got to get used to all the drivers because I've been gone now for 3 years, and they've got 3 years worth of new drivers. Some of the old guys are gone, and you know, some of the old guys are back. But you know, I've got to learn that. It's a much more professionally run organization than when I left. I think with AC-Delco coming along and with the great points fund, you know, somebody's got to think about staying here. And I think that maybe, not this year, of course, but maybe next year, we could walk away with a lot of money.
And there's something else brand new in Mr. Miller's life. Donna Castile is now the former Miss Donna Castile of Abingdon, Virginia. She's now the new Mrs. Butch Miller. Maybe she'll have a settling effect on this man from Michigan. And finally, Mike Miller gets the number 22 machine out of the mud and back onto the racetrack.
Well, it was a long wait for Mike, and likely the primary reason for this relatively lengthy full course yellow as the field continues to circulate around the 3 miles. That's 5K. And we're very close to the Canadian border, so that's appropriate to bring up kilometers. And of course, next weekend, the American Speed Association will be running in Calgary. Now, the number 56 car you're looking at right there is a relatively new car to all of you ASA followers. This is Brett Bell. Now, Brett's out of Vacaville, California. This is the Casey's General Stores Wonder Bar Special. Now, we pinpoint Brett Bell because he was the 8th fastest qualifier, and he is one of the experienced road racers in this field. He had a spin in his qualifying race yesterday, and so he had to start today's race near the back of the pack. But, Rob, you know, I would not count this guy out yet because they came a long ways to race. They had a calculated plan. Glenn Allen Sr. is working on this team. Rick Martindale is the car owner, and they are making a commitment to the American Speed Association, and they wanted to do what they could for their brand new sponsor, the Casey General Stores people out of Knoxville, Iowa, Mike Eddy in the pits.
And Bob Seneker was in as well. Brett Bell is a familiar name to people who know Southwest Tour racing, but he's only got a total of some 35 events in any form of motorsport under his credit, and a lot of people think that he may be one of the rising stock car stars of the future.
I'll bet his percentage of road races compared to oval races is probably as big as anybody in the field.
No doubt about it. He was in jeopardy just a few moments ago of going a lap down. The most recent yellow flag caution period enabled him, after having made an earlier green flag stop, to make his way all the way around this 3-mile circuit and move back in on the tail end of the lead lap.
And remember, we just saw Tom Harrington's car, the blue BFI Oldsmobile, go by. Tom Harrington is not in the seat. Road racer Dick Danielson is behind the wheel now. Tom was involved in an accident, not on the racetrack, not in a race car, but on a bike in the pits, and wrenched his knee pretty bad. And he started the race. He'll pick up the points, but he has relinquished his seat to Dick Danielson.
And we're now looking from Tony Raines' perspective on this race course. Tony had dropped a cylinder earlier, has maintained his position on the racetrack, is able to continue in this race, but certainly is no longer a factor in terms of a potential victory in car number 25. It's been a last couple of weeks that were very frustrating for Tony Raines. Began this year so solidly, has now dropped to 5th in the point standings. He was 3rd early, but the last 2 racing weekends at Cayuga in Canada and then most recently in Flint, Michigan, have not been too kind to Tony, and he's not had a particularly good weekend here at Brainerd.
Out back, the split-fire spark plugs Ford of Jeff Neal.
To give you an idea of just how rocky and sandy it is around this racetrack, this is just off of the pit lane, but take a look at this. I mean, there's some good-sized rocks around here, and some of them are pretty sharp on the edges. This is why we are cutting so many tires. Mike Eddy just came in, changed 4 more. He did cut another set.
Well, Brainerd, as we mentioned to you, it really is one of the legendary road courses in the United States of America. They've been running here regularly since 1972, when the originally named Donnybrook Speedway closed its doors. That was basically just for amateur racing only. And when Jerry Hansen, who was one of the winningest drivers in the history of the Sports Car Club of America, got involved in the ownership of this racetrack in 1973, they eventually went public and had a lot of professional road races here. But drivers like Bob Tullius, Danny Angayas, Peter Gregg, Jackie Ickx, even actor Paul Newman have won races here. By the way, one of the winningest drivers in the history of the Brainerd International Raceway is Don Prudhomme. You say, well, he's not a road racer. No, he isn't. Remember that front stretch, which is 3/4 of a mile long? It also includes right there, see the pad there, the field is coming across right this instant? That is actually the start line of the drag race that is here. That is one of the regular stops on the NHRA drag trail, and Don Prudhomme, the wins driver in drag racing, is the winningest driver in the big high horsepower dragsters here as we go back to Brainerd.
Benson and Sauter running 1-2 down the main straightaway. A pair of teammates, the 76 of John Cadman and the 12 of Jimmy Spencer, side by side into the right-hand sweeper at some 160 miles an hour. And it looks like Spencer has taken not only 3rd, but perhaps 2nd. But no, that's not Spencer, that's Cadman. And John Cadman, we haven't seen much from him all day long, Larry. Maybe now they've found the combination that are going to enable him to make it 2 road race victories in a row in ASA.
Corner 2, there's corner number 3. It's a hard braking turn. It's as close to a hairpin as you'll find on this track. Corner number 3 and corner number 10, leading onto that long front stretch, are the 2 slowest speed turns. Remember, this is the back half of the course. It's a series of S corners. That was turn number 4. There's turn number 5. next corner will be turn number 6. Jay Sauter drops a couple wheels off into that sandy, rocky dirt that Ralph was just showing you. Turn 7, 8, 9 complex coming up. 9, it will be a right-hander. You have to slow down significantly there. It leads on to the second longest straightaway on this course. There's Dick Danielson, remember, in the number 91 car, followed by Harold Fair. And coming up this lap, the Wins Halfway Challenge. And it looks like Johnny Benson, who's won so many of these the last couple of years, is going to win it again. John Benson carrying a couple of the in-car cameras, actually 3 of the in-car cameras today. He's had a strong weekend again. And Benson, as he looks forward and looks upward and sees the Wins flag as the signaling of the Wins Halfway Challenge winner for the Brainerd 300. John Benson Jr.
Well, they're the top 4. They've separated themselves by about 10 car lengths from the 5th place car, I believe, is now the 81 machine of Harold Fair, but just a couple of machines back is Leighton Reese in car number 6. We haven't heard much from him lately. He did make a pit stop that relegated him to the rear, but he is working his way back through the field.
You know, the halfway challenge is worth a nice little tidy chunk of change. We haven't talked about the bonus that is available to the General Motors drivers today. It doubles the winner's purse. It adds $12,000, and I believe that means that the winner's purse is going to be well in excess of $20,000 or $22,000 if the driver of the winning car today is in a Chevrolet.
Well, both Ford and Chevrolet Motor divisions have ponied up with some big bucks, some $500,000 strong for 1993. The last 2 races, Larry, have been won by Ford drivers, Glenn Allen Jr. and Bob Seneker. That means the $4,000 to win if you're in a Chevy rolled over for each of those races. It became 8 at Flint. When it wasn't 1 at Flint, it is $12,000 for a winner in a Chevrolet bow tie brand here at Brainerd this afternoon.
And there's a bow tie. There's a bow tie in front of that bow tie. Oh, my goodness, there are 3 bow ties up front right now.
There are lots of them up front, and I really hadn't recognized the fact that the Fords don't seem to be faring well here this afternoon. We do have a couple of Oldsmobiles and a few Pontiacs, and John Freeman has spun car number 16 right in mid-pack. Freeman, remember, had not stopped when the rest of the leaders did. He had led for a couple of laps, had fallen back to about 7th or 8th in the running order, and now is able to safely pull car number 16 off the racetrack after nearly collecting a whole host of machines running behind him. That's the Tioga Pines Chevrolet of John Freeman.
I think that was about the closest call that we've had all weekend, because Freeman was right in the center of the racetrack. Getting back to this Ford Chevrolet story, Dick Trickle started the race in 3rd today. Remember, he had won one of the qualifying races. Jeff Neal was the other highly placed Ford at the beginning of the race. He started this race in 7th, but you are right. The Fords have really not had a whiff of the front since Dick Trickle dropped out early on. Well, the race drones on, but Benson has his hands full. We'll be back. Has current race leader John Benson had a good ASA season? Well, let's see. He's number 1 in dollars won. He is number 1 in the laps completed 100%. He has led more laps overwhelmingly than anybody else, and he's the points leader. I guess that's an indication that he's had a pretty fair country year. John Benson, hey, he's leading this one too. Out running in 2nd position right now is John Cadman. Remember, Cadman is the only winner in the history of the American Speed Association to win on a road course. That's because he won the only one ever staged. We asked him a little earlier, is he as an advantage because of his vast experience on this type of racetrack?
Experience is really the only advantage I have on these guys. You know, they're all excellent race car drivers, and my feeling is that if you're a good race car driver, you can adapt to any circumstances, and Johnny's showing that along with some other guys. So I think the only advantage I might have is as the race goes on, you know, I might have a little bit more experience as to how to get the car and keep it more consistent. That's hard to say, too.
Well, Cadman turned back the challenges of Jimmy Spencer, teammate Jimmy Spencer, on that pass down the front straightaway. Cadman now goes to the inside of Jay Sauter. Sauter's not ready to give up that position, and Cadman squirts through as they pass underneath Alec Pinsonneau. And wow, close call there for this early in the race. I mean, we're at lap 34, but still a long ways to go to the end. But Cadman decided it was time, I guess, for him to run in 2nd position behind Benson, who happens to be disappearing in the horizon.
Johnny Benson, look, he's not even in that frame. He is long gone and trying to get enough cushion between himself and the second-place car that he can take it easy. Would Benson do that? I don't think so. Let me give you a real quick rundown. Here's the way they were running the last time by. It is Johnny Benson. Second is John Cadman. Third is now Jimmy Spencer, with Jay Sauter right there to challenge in fourth position. Spencer now trying to take second spot away from Cadman, and he's got it. In fifth position is car number 6. That is Leighton Reese. In sixth position, car number 81. Leighton is in fifth. Sixth is the 81 machine of Harold Fair. Seventh is car number 7, Gary St. Amant, and he is the best running Ford at this juncture in the race. Butch Miller runs 8th in car number 52. He also in a Ford. 9th is Tony Roper in car number 10. We haven't even mentioned him today. A solid race, presently 10th. 9th, Brett Bell runs in 10th position, car number 56. 11th is Dave Watson's car number 77. Randy McDonald rides 12th in car number 19. And 13th, after a late pit stop during this most recent caution, the 84 machine of Bob Seneca.
You know, Rob, I ran into a lot of the guys at dinner last night, including Joey Nod, and I said to everyone that I talked to, fellas, I really believe that if he can stay on track, you'll be amazed at how much of this race comes back to you, because guys up front will be racing hard for position, and they won't be concentrating as much perhaps as they should be at really being pinpoint perfect and staying on the track. And if you just don't go off course, you're going to be amazed at where you end up. And I think that Tony Roper and Gary St. Amant and Harold Fair are perfect examples of that. We haven't even given them a call, and they're 6th, 7th, and 9th right now.
What has been a huge surprise to me, Larry, is the fact that Friday afternoon, you and I went down and watched these guys go through turn 1 at some 160 miles an hour, and we shuddered at the thought of someone getting off course, going over that hill, over the embankment in turn 1 or turn 2. There hasn't been a single incident in either one of those extremely treacherous corners. They've all come in the back part of the racetrack, either the 120-degree third turn or the 90-degree fourth, fifth, and sixth turns.
Yeah, where the speeds are down to well under 100 miles an hour. But it's a very busy section right here where the cars are. You're on the gas, on the brake, shift on occasion. Jimmy Spencer running second place. Now remember, it's a teammate to Scott Hansen and John Cadman. He's number 12. 76 is Cadman. Scott Hansen right now, the number 53 car, has dropped out of the top 10. But this section back here, brake, gas, shift, brake, gas. Again, this section, the straight section between turns 9 and 10, leading on to the drag strip, front straightaway. Smoke from Jimmy Spencer's car. Ralph is standing by with some comments about his teammate, John Cadman. I'm going to guess, Ralph, it was brake smoke from Jimmy Spencer, but what you got on Cadman?
Well, if you listen to Cadman's car as it goes by through your TV screen, you'll notice that it sounds a little bit different than the rest of our V6 engines here at the ASA series. Problem is, he's got a broken header. Now, that will change the exhaust note, but it will not affect necessarily the performance of his car.
Now, there's John. We'll try and take a listen here, see if we can pick him up out on course anywhere. Sort of difficult to tell because there are cars that are now basically encircling this entire 3-mile road course. They're everywhere. There's, by the way, Leighton Reese in the background behind Cadman. That's Cadman. Leighton Reese appears to be a couple football fields behind John Cadman. So though Leighton is in 5th place in that Leighton's Garage Chevrolet machine, he's still definitely in it. By the way, Leighton's Garage, as in Leighton Reese, yeah, it's the same guy. Specializes in foreign car repair. They're in the Twin Cities area, and he says, please, I need business. So if you live down there and you like Leighton's performance and you got a car that was built somewhere other than Detroit, take it to Leighton. But Johnny Benson continues to lead. John Cadman Jr. is in second. Jay Sauter and Jimmy Spencer are contesting third place. These people are contesting the weather. This is the road course at Brainerd, Minnesota, and that car flashing underneath your television screen right now is the son of a fairly famous Midwestern short track driver of about 25 years ago. His name was John Benson. This guy's name is John Benson Jr. There's the second running right there in the black and green car, Jay Sauter. That's A.J. Cooper. Remember, he was off a few laps ago. Jay has just taken second place back from Jimmy Spencer. Jay and Jimmy Spencer have been comparing notes in that position. You see Spencer, he says, well, I think I'll check out the right side of Jay this time, hoping that he hit that slow-speed corner number 10 just right, which will give him some extra RPMs at the end of a 3/4 mile drag strip, but not this time, as Jimmy Spencer will continue to ride in third position behind Jay Sauter.
Meanwhile, Leighton Reese has taken the fading John Cadman for fourth position, relegating Cadman to 5th. as Jay Sauter has moved into second position. Benson and Sauter 1-2, Larry. Now, just a season ago, the very first ASA road race, we were thrilled with Benson finishing third behind Leighton Reese and John Cadman. And just to show you how adaptable these guys are to this road racing circuit, they're running very well today.
Benson in turn number 10. Remember, it's heavy braking coming onto the front straightaway, way out of the groove. Yeah, that's up in the gray stuff. That's your race leader, John Benson, running all by himself. He missed his turn-in point. He missed his braking point. And speaking of spinning out, 6, as in 76, John Cadman, top 5 car. Remember the advice that if you just stay on course, you'll be amazed at how the race comes back to you on the road course.
Well, Cadman, who was so strong 1 year ago at Mosport in ASA's first ever road race en route to victory, is having his share of problems in the latter half of this race this afternoon. However, unlike Mike Miller and A.J. Cooper and some other drivers who had to wait an interminable amount of time to get some help, Cadman off course in a position that has enabled him to drive back onto the racing surface. And look how Benson's lead diminished as a result of that near disaster for him. I think Johnny may be just going a little bit easier at this point.
Benson's pitting. John Benson takes the hard left turn, goes into the pits on lap number 38, and it's probably too early. I don't think Benson can go the distance with the load of fuel that he would get on this pit stop. So this is definitely on schedule. John Benson Jr.'s race may be going away at this instant.
I'm not sure yet, Larry. Don't count him out. 22 laps remaining in this race. That's about 66 miles. That is enough for fuel, but Benson will now have to cross his fingers and hope for another full course caution if, in fact, he's to become a factor. On a 3-mile racetrack, taking nearly 2 minutes to get around.
Oh, I thought the car dropped off, Jack.
Yeah, it looked like it for just a moment.
Okay.
They're going to change all 4. So he's obviously run over something. When he slid up out into that gray area, he's probably picked up some stones and cut down the tire. And Jay Sauter, for the first time today, has inherited the lead in car number 1. What a day it has been. What a weekend it has been for this young man from Wisconsin. And then KC Motorsports Weir's Delco Voyager Chevrolet.
Well, there were 4 established road racers who began this race. Leighton Reese, who started on the pole, we're back watching him push Benson's car, trying to get it to refire. The motor is dead, we hear from Ralph. They finally got it going, the old trusty method of pushing with the crew members, and Benson goes back out onto the course. Leighton Reese, pole setter, was one of the road racers in this field. John Cadman Jr., Brad Hoyt, who was the 24th fastest qualifier, and Bruce Lee's bright yellow number 04, and Lou Gelati. Now, Hoyt has never been a factor all weekend long. Gelati looked like he was going to be a factor in the early laps as he brought the young Chevrolet car from dead last, but then he had engine problems in that machine. Cadman, we just saw spin off course, and Leighton Reese still riding comfortably inside the top, 3 now. There's Leighton at the top of the screen, but that hasn't really challenged for the lead here the last 10 laps.
With all of Benson's tribulations on pit road, you can see that the leaders are just now coming past the start-finish line. So Benson is not in jeopardy of going a lap down. And Tony Raines has been in and out of the pit several times today. He's in this time, Larry, it looks like permanently in car number 25.
John Benson, he'll be flogging that machine now, trying to get that Haas to get going as quickly as he can. He's going to be trying to make up for lost time. You see Benson going around Tony Roper, top 10 car, and Benson makes very easy work of him. This was a race of champions today. Jay Sauter, he's only got 1 career win, so certainly never a champion, but 5 drivers accounting for 13 championships in the American Speed Association started today's race, headed by Mike 87, of course. Dave Watson was the champion of this circuit in 1977. Dick Trickle is a 2-time champion, as is Mike Miller. They were in the late 1980s. And Bob Seneca was the 1990 champion. But none of those champions has really shown the hand worthy of winning this race so far today.
There is your leader. It continues to be Jay Sauter with Jimmy Spencer behind him. He runs in second position in car number 12. These drivers have been top 5 all day. Spencer has shown an ability to run up in front on a couple of occasions, but Sauter now taking advantage of his inheritance of that top position in car number 1. And he's one of the drivers, I think, that epitomizes what these cars are all about. We've talked through this season about the technical sophistication of ASA race cars, and this is the only car that Jay Sauter owns. It's adaptable not only to the quarter miles, the half miles, the super speedway 1-mile Milwaukee mile, and the 160-mile-an-hour straightaway and switchbacks of Brainerd Raceway. I think Ralph is standing by on pit road.
Rob, we talked earlier about how Johnny Benson was lucky with that 1 caution period. This time he was unlucky. It looks like his luck is worn out. He claimed that he thought he had a left front tire going down. Well, they came in, they changed all four. All four tires were just fine. Possibly the only thing that could have happened was when he went off course, he picked up a lot of debris and a lot of dust on that tire, and it slipped and slid on him a little while, but those tires were fine.
I think, Larry, though, that Johnny did make the right decision. He really had no choice. What if he had elected to stay out and he did cut a tire somewhere in the back of the race course? His afternoon would be over. Now at least he's got about 60 miles to make something out of this race yet. And he's, you know, Ralph says his luck has gone to bad, but listen, this guy's still got a shot at a win today.
And back to the computer we were talking about earlier, the computer would tell us, if there was one, there's going to be another full course yellow. And with another full course yellow, Benson will be right back in.
Jay Sauter continues to fly his advantage over Jimmy Spencer, and that's settled down for the time being. There remains about a 4 or 5 car length difference, though it looks like Jay has eased out ever slightly.
And the other thing we need to mention here is that, and I have continued to make this more confusing than what it needs to be today, our fueling situation and pit stop situation. None of the cars on the track, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, are going to be able to go the distance anyway. They're all going to have to stop one more time, with the exception of Benson.
It would be a stretch. Now, I know Bob Seneca and Mike Eddy came in on lap 30, so theoretically, they might be the only ones who could stretch it to the checker, but everybody else will have to come on pit road. Benson will not. So even if we go green, it could equalize things. However, remember, he did kill the engine, and that may have cost an additional 5 or 6 seconds that he will have to make up on the racetrack.
Here's the interval back to third. There's first, second. That was Sauter. Number 12, Carl Spencer. And here is third running Leighton Reese. It was Greg Freed just behind Leighton. If you thought you saw some bodywork flapping, yeah, you were right. Good eyes. Greg had spun off course about 15 green flag laps ago and experienced some body damage. There is Leighton Reese, third place. His first ASA started this season. He ran about half the races a year ago. A very aggressive driver, and John Cadman is in trouble again. John Cadman perhaps trying to go a little harder than what he should be, trying to make up for last lost ground. He was battling with a group of cars. I know the last time he went by, he was close to Mike Eddy. Don't know if Eddy was a part of that or not. But, perhaps we have that on replay, and we can update you. Cadman going to the pits. Well, here is a replay on what happened to John Cadman Jr.
Well, let's see. It looks like the Goodwrench Pontiac of Mike Eddy hard into turn number 10. That's the last corner. You can see they've just exited the bridge. I'm not sure there was any contact. It appeared, Larry, that Cadman hard on the binders, and it broke the rear end loose on car number 76.
He laid down a long patch of rubber, that's for sure. He was on the brakes hard going into corner number 10. Now, it may well have been that Cadman was braking to come into the pits anyway. And, Ralph, we've made this, as I mentioned before, more confusing than perhaps it needs to be, this fuel situation. What are your thoughts?
Well, let me change a few things around for you down here. Maybe we're going to make it even more confusing.
Okay, you got a deal.
Some of the teams are saying that the window to make it all the way to the finish was lap 22. If you could go that far on one tank of fuel, then you'd be able to go the rest of the way on one fuel stop. So the last caution flag, or the first caution flag, actually came out around lap 22. Howie Letow brought in Jimmy Spencer, fueled the car, and sent him back out. Spencer has radioed in and says, I've got a car that can win here today. Howie says, I know, I built it. Just drive it slow and ease that fuel mileage. We might just go all the way. So that's what's being played out down here. Benson has got his full fuel. He doesn't need to stop anymore. Even Gary St. Amant is going to go all the way, and we've had a lead change.
Yes, we have, and you were talking about, Spencer saying I was going to take it easy, Ralph. He really hasn't on this lap. He has really diced with Jay Sauter.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna pull out my old handy
we got trouble, almost trouble on the course.
Jay Sauter get together.
Spencer and Sauter come together. Spencer off course. Sauter, the gentleman that he is, waits for Spencer, sort of, to get back on course. And they continue to be very close, within a half a car length through the twisty, turny section of the race course. They both got on the brakes. I mean, I was really surprised that Jay didn't pull away when Jimmy got off course.
I think he did let him get back on course. There's no doubt about it. Jay must have felt that he was responsible for Spencer getting out of shape and simply gave him enough time to get going.
Wouldn't that be a very interesting and a gentlemanly moment? Jimmy is the kind of guy who's very demonstrative, and if he was angry, I guarantee, Yeah, Jay is into the back of Jimmy. Look at the back of Jimmy's car lifted off the ground. Jay just not braking hard enough going into the corner. At this point in a road race, we might add that that may not have been a driver error. I mean, the brakes begin to go away. The pedal gets a lot closer to the floorboard than it's been all day long. So that may have been that situation for Jay, not driver error.
That section of the track has worked well for Jay Sauter all day. Just got a little hotter, I think, than he might have thought he could do. He got into the back of Spencer.
Oh,
and another problem, Gary St. Amant.
First time today that we're aware of, he went off course, and that car looks like it's dragging right. Oh, he has hit something. He has hit one of those little ridges off course, and Gary's machine does look broken.
In fact, it looks like it's minus the right front wheel. Either that or sitting at a very odd angle. It's kind of dark in the opening there. But Gary definitely has some damage, and this may, Larry, very well may necessitate another full course caution to get that car out of
the Wins Thunderbird was having such a great day. There's the wheel coming off. You're right. The wheel came off. That is the reason why that car went off course. So it's like a wheel broke, sending the car off course and putting Gary into the casual water. Oh, too bad, because he had had a great race until that point.
Gary had been running in the top 10 in his Wins Ford Thunderbird, so his race comes to an end not too far from the finish.
Okay, we're beginning to approach the latter stages of this 300-kilometer event. You're riding with race leader, well, once race leader John Benson, who hopes that he has enough fuel and enough oomph to get to the distance first. Our next full course yellow at Brainerd. This is a recreational paradise around here, and it'll be interesting to see how many of our leading lap cars choose to pit. You know, this region in a 25-mile radius, we're taking a look at Gary St. Amant, who's inspecting the damage to the right front. In a 25-mile radius around here, there are 464 freshwater lakes, all surrounded by wilderness acres, a fisherman's paradise, and I'm telling you, that's the reason why Childress is up here tonight at the race.
Yeah.
It's also the home of Al and Ron Linderman of the Syndicated Fishermen's Program, and Gary St. Amant found one of those lakes, although probably by midsummer the lake that he found is going to be gone. Full course yellow, the race leader at this point is John Cadman, or make that Jimmy Spencer. Second running car is Jay Sauter. This, of course, is the first of two road racing events that you'll see live on the Nashville Network in the 1993 season. Coming up on the 1st of August, the Mellow Yellow 300 from Topeka, Kansas. That broadcast is scheduled to start at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. On the 29th of August, the end of that month, height of summer out there, Odessa, Missouri, the I-70 Speedway right along, yeah, you guessed it, Interstate 70. The Missouri 300, a high-banked half-mile paved racetrack. Followed by on the 12th of September, also a 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time start from Madison, Wisconsin, the Madison 200. So Topeka, Odessa, and Madison coming up in the next couple of months here on the Nashville Network. As we continue under a full course yellow here at Brainerd, we'll take this break and be back at you as we kind of watch to see just how much oomph Johnny Benson has left. The American Speed Association is just a small cog, really, in the season-long summer of racing at the Brainerd International Raceway, BIR. Some of the natives know it as around here. Altogether, there are 16 professional weekends here and some 30-odd weekends altogether, believe it or not. I mean, they race from snow to snow up here at the Brainerd International Racecourse. AMA is a part of this, Central Road Racing Association. They run bikes, vintage cars, and, of course, those NHRA Nationals. Now, almost the entire field pitted during this full course yellow, and it was very crowded down there. During the drivers' meeting, there was the question and the discussion about, well, what speed do you want us to run down there? And the answer was, as is safe. So here's what happened down in the pits as Leighton Reese and the number 12 car of Jimmy Spencer come out at the same time. Leighton Reese has to take evasive action, drive out onto the grass. Now, here's another look at it.
Well, watch this unsuspecting ASA official as Leighton moves right behind one of the crew members for Jimmy Spencer. There's an ASA official right here doing some riding. Now watch, as these two approach him, I don't think he'll even notice them going by. No, he's still just very matter-of-factly going about his business. Spencer picks up the spot on pit road.
He prudently, however, had positioned himself about 10 feet off the pavement. That was a good idea.
Hey, Newbert, guess who is leading this race as we look at Spencer?
Oh, you're going to tell me it's one of those Sauter, Eddiker, yes. Sauter, Eddie, or Benson guys, right?
You're right, but it's the least likely today.
Mike Eddy.
Mike Eddy stayed on the racetrack, and guess who's running right behind him in second position?
Russ Gamester. I see the orange car. No? Okay, I get it.
It's car number 21.
Let's see. The guy that had to stop under the green flag, the emergency pit stop, probably has enough fuel to go to distance, lost all that track time, and now he gets it back, plus the lead.
But with tires that are probably 4 or 5 green flag laps older than the whole host of cars that came on pit road behind him. And I'm not sure, Larry, but there have got to be at least 15 or 16 cars still on that lead lap.
Yeah, Jimmy Spencer told us just before this race, he said, it's amazing. The new tires, you can go down the front straightaway, go through the high-speed corner number 1 and corner number 2 nearly flat out. He said, when I went out to qualify, I took what I believed to be my normal line, and I had new tires, and I was shocked at how easy the car went through the turn. I was sorry that I didn't flat-foot it all the way through here. He said it only took about 3 laps, though, of this abrasive track surface to get the tires back down to normal, as Jimmy called it. No longer could he flat-foot it through 1 and 2. So that's a good point, Rob, that the guys who have pitted, they may have 4 or 5 good laps under their tires. You wonder about Leighton Reese, driven off course. Now, yeah, I know it was only about 25 miles per hour, but there's a lot of grass, and a lot of sand, a lot of rocks off this course, and every time you just go off course just a second, it's really rough on these tires.
Well, while we're taking a yellow flag breather, before we give you a rundown, let's go down to Ralph, who I think has got a question of his own on pit road. Ralph?
Well, you know, Rob, I was just sitting here watching the leaders go by, and I was thinking how much Mike Eddy really does not enjoy running road races. I'm figuring right now, being the leader, he's probably enjoying it a little bit more. But right behind him is Johnny Benson Jr., who really has done a masterful job of learning how to drive both left and right kinds of turns. The big question now becomes, with the points battle being the way it is, how difficult and how wide will that number 88 become, and where will John have to go to get around him? And don't forget, John has to dip a wheel inside or outside of that dirt to get around Eddy. He stands another chance of cutting another tire down.
Yeah, very good point, Ralph. And I'm sure all those thoughts are on Eddie's mind. And of course, we also have 3 cars that are in front of them on the chain that's right behind the pace car. One of those cars is John Cadman Jr., who will not be minced meat. You will not get around him very easy. So lots of questions here to be answered. How is Leighton Reese's car? Is Jimmy Spencer strong? Will John Benson try to strong-arm the lead as quickly as he possibly can? And just what does Mike Eddy think about all this? Back to green flag. Your timing is excellent. You've just returned from the kitchen. Remember, the race leader is Mike Eddy, that black car right in the center of your screen. Running in second place is John Benson Jr., looking for room to get around. But John Cadman Jr. is down there. We've had a spin off of corner number 10. It's Brett Bell and Mike Miller involved. This is the second spin for both, or at least for Mike Miller in today's race, but they were running at the tail end, at least Brett Bell was, of the lead lap. Mike Miller had lost several minutes stuck in water, remember, earlier in the race. Change for the lead. John Benson Jr. goes to what was the inside of Mike Eddy coming out of that right-hander. It's still right-hander again, so it's still the inside. And John Benson a spin. It looks like Jimmy Spencer right in front of Jay Sauter. So a spin in the top 5. Spencer goes all the way around. Leighton Reese somewhere in that mix. Will he benefit from that? Will Leighton Reese now be running in 3rd position?
Jay Sauter has the greatest deal of difficulty getting under power as Benson now begins to stretch it out a bit over Mike Eddy, who runs in 2nd position. I believe that's Scott Hansen right behind him, but he is 1 lap down. And another car off course that looks like Dennis Lampman's car number 9.
Jimmy Spencer in car number 12, one of 3 Jerry Gunderman, Scott Hansen crewed, 2 cheap cars, if you will. Scott is sort of their office manager and crew chief, and he's now behind the wheel.
Well, I don't know. Howie Leddow might have something to say about it.
Yeah. What would you call Scotty, I guess?
I don't know. Howie has taken
office manager?
That's right. Howie's taken 4 drivers to Rookie of the Year in his career, so he's still crew chief around that place. Make no mistake.
All right, so 1st and 2nd, there's 2nd running Mike Eddy. I was about to say before that spin that I do believe, even though there are 12 cars in the lead lap, that this is a 4-car race between John Benson, number 21, who leads. Then running second was the number 1 car of Jay Sauter. Jimmy Spencer was third, and in fourth is Leighton Reese.
Look at the top of your screen, that blue car, that is the Ford Thunderbird, the Lane Automotive Kinetic Engines Ford of Bob Seneca, wrestling third position away from Leighton Reese. Where did he come from?
Bob Seneca moves underneath Leighton Reese. Here they come right at you at the screen, coming down out of corner number 3 through, or out of corner number 5, around corner number 6. Seneca washes out a little bit in that corner, giving Leighton Reese some room. Leighton goes to what was the inside, will remain the inside to this corner. Leighton Reese gets the position back. Jimmy Spencer right behind Leighton Reese. A car off course in front of them. Spencer tries to get around Leighton Reese, squeezes Leighton to the high side, gives him racing room. Bob Seneca, who had just passed both of these cars, finds himself behind them. Spencer trying to get around Leighton Reese. Remember, a fast qualifier, and Spencer does so.
Seneca mysteriously losing ground through the S section of the racetrack, was extremely strong, exiting turn 10 and down that long straightaway, enabling him to take over that third position as these cars now run third, fourth, and fifth behind that man right there who's in second position, Mike Eddy in the GM Goodwrench Pontiac. And you could see some dust right in front of that third, fourth, and fifth place battle. Here's what precipitated that. Mike Eddy is off the racetrack trying to keep up the pace being set by Johnny Benson and not wanting to give up spots to the men coming hard behind him.
Now here are some other cars that are also on the lead lap, and positions are changing every split second, it seems, but Harold Fair is still on the lead lap. Bob Seneca, we mentioned. Randy McDonald was, Mike Eddy is running in second. McDonald was held in the pits for a stop and go as we went back to green, so that will really hurt his chances. Butch Miller still on the lead lap. Brett Bell is on the lead lap, and remember, he was involved in that spin just as we went back to green. Dave Watson, the lead lap car, as was Dr. Yale Conley. So it's not possible to give you a rundown. We can just again tell you the cars that are still on the lead lap. Eddy and Benson, of course, Sauter and Fair, Spencer and 12, the 6th car of Leighton Reese, 84 of Seneca, 52 of Miller, 56 of Brett Bell, 19 of Randy McDonald with a stop and go, 77 of Dave Watson, and 3 of Conley.
There you could see the margin, first to second and now third, as Spencer has tagged right on the tail end of the black car number 88. Here are a couple of guys, man, if you want to see action on the racetrack, watch these two. They'll go at it, no doubt about it, as the battle rages for second position between Eddy and Spencer. Second,
third, fourth, and fifth, right on your screen right there. Second, third, fourth, and fifth, they're right together, coming down to the final stages of this 80-lap race. 70 laps down, only 10 laps to go, but fans, that's 30 miles.
Actually, it's 50 down and 10 to go. 60-lap race.
Sorry.
I'll tell you, the conversion from miles to laps, we're not used to having to do that in ASA.
Well, the scoreboard was misleading. The scoreboard looks like it's got a set. Well, it says 10 right now. I know that's not right.
Well, a great battle for second and third position.
Look at this. Second, third, fourth, and fifth. They are right together again. Eddy on the low side. Here comes Spencer on the high side. The train goes by. Seneca goes by. The number 6 car of Leighton Reese goes by. Mike drops from second to 6th. Make that second to fifth in one corner.
And you can see also Jay Sauter in car number 1. He was involved in that incident with Jimmy Spencer and Leighton Reese a little bit ago on the right after the restart back in the back section of the racetrack. And here comes Eddy back to challenge Leighton Reese. Now Reese had just gotten by him. Wonder what's going on. And Bob Seneca, you can see the evidence of some smoke trailing car number 54 into that 84 into that sweeping right-hand first turn.
Leighton Reese looks like he may be having a little bit of difficulty because the experienced road racer he is, he would have hit that low-speed corner number 10, and he didn't even come close to it that time. Mike Eddy went around him. Jay Sauter moved in, and Leighton Reese, and there's smoke coming out of Spencer's car. Looked like braking smoke coming out of his car.
Wasn't it you and Mr. Shaheen that not too long ago were riding off car number 21?
No, I think that was another announcer.
Ralph?
Well, Rob, I don't think we exactly were writing him off. We were just saying his day was becoming more difficult. But now that day is becoming very difficult for those who are trying to catch Johnny Benson Jr. His lap times currently are 0.2 of a second slower than where he qualified at. That means, folks, he's moving. In fact, he has gone as fast as a full second quicker than what he qualified at earlier today.
Amazing.
It was remarkable also when we recorded our point of view lap from Benson's car with him delivering a commentary, which if you were watching the beginning of the show, you saw It was during the actual running of the qualifier race. And during that lap, of course, you were clocked every lap in a race, Benson actually turned the single fastest lap of the entire weekend. We had it on tape and brought it to you, and Johnny Benson commented on it while he was nonchalantly wheeling around there.
One of the functions is of the crew chief, Larry, is to be in radio communication with the driver. And one of his jobs is to keep that driver calm behind the wheel. It's Benson who is keeping his crew chief, Chris Bradley, calm. If we could listen in, and I know you have done that on your scanner, you say, it's Bradley the one that's pumped up, and it's Benson. Listen, just take it easy, everything will be okay.
Yeah, one of the incidents this weekend, they were getting ready to go out for green flag practice lap, and the radio wasn't working. And you're right, it was Johnny who said, well, we'll just deal with whatever we have, and we'll work something out.
Well, he's dealing with whatever he has and what everybody else has at this point in the race. With about 25 miles to go, Benson appears to be headed for his third victory of the season. No other driver has so much as a second win in the 1993 racing season. And he has led, I should say, a charmed life this year. There have been several times he has been very close to disaster, involved in some incidents that he was able to drive away from literally unscathed. And he's had his share of problems today. It's still incredible that he's out in front.
John Benson's qualifying lap was 1 minute 42 seconds and call it 0.6 of a second. The pole lap turned in by Leighton Reese was 142.3. So we'll see how John's lap here late in this race measures up to the qualifying speed. It's an average speed of above 105 miles per hour, by the way. And I think we've commented a couple of times that accounts for also a maximum speed estimated at the end of the long 3/4 mile front straightaway at 165 miles an hour. The fastest that probably many of these American Speed Association cars have ever gone. Remember, qualifying time, 1 minute and 42 seconds. Benson a couple seconds slower than qualifying, but still quite remarkable for the stage of the race.
And seems to be relatively smooth in doing it. He got a bit squirrely going through turn number 9, exiting the bridge. 103.3 miles an hour, and there were only about a dozen cars that qualified that quickly on Friday afternoon.
You know, you were talking about Benson's coolness behind the wheel. He was another driver who was at dinner last night. There was an AC-Delco dinner at one of the local lodges, and I wasn't even aware that they were experimenting with Johnny through use of his in-car camera and a radio. And at one point, there was the possibility that, and Benson slides into corner number 5 very hard. The car almost looked like it was out of control, as Dennis Lampman had a bird's-eye view of that. But Benson, maybe not quite as secure, and the rails aren't as stable as we thought. Anyway, commenting about last night, talking to Benson, he was telling me about the possible radio hookup, and he said, I don't mind talking to you under green flag as long as I'm not really busy, as long as there's only maybe a couple cars around me. I'll talk to you while I'm racing.
There are a couple of former ASA champions running 6th and 7th respectively. Mike Eddy in that car number 88 was in 6th position. Right behind him was Butch Miller, car number 52. He is a former 2-time ASA champion. Back to the leader.
Yeah,
it was
first and second.
And you can see Spencer running that car very hard into that corner. Brake smoke coming, tire smoke chirping off those Goodyear Racing Eagles. As he now has Benson in his sights and knows that he needs to make up only about 5 or 6 seconds in the remaining now 7 laps or 21 miles of the Brainerd 300.
Soldiers in a row. Seneca, Reese, follow Reese around. Jay Sauter is right behind him. Leighton Reese really would have liked to pick up the checkered flag today. This will be one of his very few races of the 1993 season. The Eiton Chevrolet, Leighton's garage machine. He was a regular in the American Speed Association in 1992, but finances and other circumstances have sort of prevented that from happening this year, and he really would have liked to have won this race. For Leighton, second, third, or fourth place will not be devastating, but he'll be disappointed if he wanted to win.
That is, in fact, the battle for 3rd position. Bob Seneca occupies it, Leighton Reese 4th, and that's Jay Sauter. He runs in the 5th spot in car number 1.
And running on the track behind them every once in a while, you get a glimpse of him. The blue and yellow number 22 of Mike Miller. He's been very fast all weekend, but spent about 10 minutes in the water earlier in the race, so he is not a factor for a top 10. Reese, Seneca come together. Seneca slips off the racetrack, loses momentum. The road racer, Reese, moves around. There wasn't a lot of room there, but Leighton found it. Leighton Reese, by the way, he began his motor racing career on the ice. They race on frozen lakes up here in Minnesota and Wisconsin in the wintertime. They take out snow plows and invent road courses on the snow-covered frozen lakes. And Leighton at one time had a Saab ice racer that was legendary in these parts. And now we're hearing on the radio that John Benson has what he believes to be a tire problem. He has told his pit crew that I'm coming in, so John Benson Jr. may be giving away the race this time, Ralph. I'll tell you, stand by. Maybe you and I are going to be right yet, but we weren't right the first time. John Benson Jr., let's see if he comes in this time. Yes, he drifts to the left, goes to the left side of the cones, marking the racetrack in the edge, and he's going toward Ralph Shaheen.
Here he comes, Larry, down pit lane. We can see, remember, it is a long way down here, so John is wide open all the way down pit lane. No regulation on speeds here. Hopefully he'll be able to bring the car to a smooth stop. Here he comes. The right rear is all the way down to the ground. Chris Bradley and the crew go around to the right side of the car. They quickly go to work on that right rear tire. We're watching as the crew works. Benson waving to hurry up. He wants to get back in this race and salvage what he can. His wife and the rest of the crew push him away, and Johnny Benson goes back into the action.
It's Johnny's birthday today, but no birthday present from the racing gods as John Benson Jr., for the second time today, is removed from the lead. The first time it was a suspected tire problem, this time a documented tire problem, and Jimmy Spencer finds himself inheriting the lead. Leighton Reese is now second.
Bob Seneca runs in the third position, car number 84, and fourth is Jay Sauter in car number 1.
The number 11 Wins Lumina of Russ Gamester comes into the pit area, trailing a big plume of smoke behind him. There's Jay Sauter moving underneath John Benson. Positions have been traded inside the top 5 all day.
And Larry, Leighton Reese is visibly closing the gap between himself and Jimmy Spencer. Now, folks, we've still got 5 laps, 15 miles to go. Leighton Reese, hungry for a win, continues to challenge.
Well, Leighton Reese is another guy we hadn't written off, but it certainly didn't look like he had a shot to win today. As I mentioned to you, second, third, or fourth would be okay, but a little disappointing. He wanted to win. Can John Benson catch up? It seems unlikely, and do we have a shootout for the win coming up? Leighton Reese, as Rob mentioned, visually closing the gap between the stock car regular from the south, Jimmy Spencer, and the road racer himself, Leighton Reese. There's some real hustling going on in the top 3. Jimmy Spencer leads this race, but Leighton Reese and Jay Sauter are hot on the trail, and they appear to be closing in, and both of them have been taking some uncharacteristic chances. Now, here is Jay Sauter running second place, moving up behind Greg Freed. Look at Leighton Reese. He sees a slight opening. Jay Sauter makes a little mistake. He decides to follow Greg Freed through that corner. Reese grabs that car, swings it to the right, thrashes his pony, and moves underneath Jay Sauter. And Leighton Reese, with a very aggressive road racing move, moves into second place. And look how close they are coming to Jimmy Spencer.
That move, Larry, I believe, no reflection on driving skill, purely a function of experience. Reese knew exactly what he had to do, set the car, turned it a little bit, and went to the inside.
This is going to get interesting. Everybody knows that Jimmy Spencer does not like to relinquish the lead. He is not in this season for points. Spencer is not going to want to give up. Leighton Reese is not in this season for points. He is the experienced road racer. Second place is nothing for Leighton Reese today. He wants to win this race. This could be very dramatic. And Jay Sauter, the unexpected man near the point, the 3 of them are getting ready to shoot at him. Spencer makes a mistake coming out of corner number 10. Reese should have the advantage coming down the front stretch, although Spencer gets back on the throttle quite well. And look at the horsepower pull away from Leighton Reese going down the front straightaway.
And Jay Sauter challenges for second position. Jay gets off the corner as well as Spencer, moves ahead of Leighton Reese, and Leighton now will have to work his way through the Essence.
Jimmy Spencer has been on a road course 6 times, he told me. He has never won on a road course. Sauter takes Leighton Reese right to the edge of the racetrack. Reese better through the twisty section of this racetrack. He has to follow. It's tough to pass back here. Leighton will be working very hard to get around Jay Sauter. He knows that this is where he is at an advantage back here, not on the long straightaway. If he is not in a good position by the time he gets to the front stretch, he will really lose a lot of ground. He does not appear to have as much power on the top end as the sign goes up saying we have only 2 laps to go, or a little more than 6 miles, about 8 miles at this point. Spencer leads. Leighton Reese was moving in on him, but when Sauter and Spencer both got around, Spencer makes a bit of a miscue through corner number 8 right there. It allows both Sauter and Leighton Reese to get closer.
And now it's Jay Sauter with the pressure. the black, yellow, and green, car number 1, with his only race car. It has to compete on every type of venue in which the AC-Delco Challenge Series contests races, and he's right in there in the thick of the battle between the more experienced road racers, Jimmy Spencer, and the veteran Leighton Reese.
And we saw what happened the last time on the front stretch. Reese really has to hit corner number 10 perfectly, or he is going to be way behind by the end of the long front straightaway. This is an important corner for Leighton Reese with 2 laps to go. Spencer hard on the brakes into the last turn. Reese seems to execute it pretty well. He gets a little bit of advantage on the high side of Sauter. He's not going to pass him on the front stretch, but it will keep him reasonably close. The white flag comes out. 1 lap to go. Spencer, Sauter, Reese, 1, 2, 3.
Behind them, Butch Miller 4th, Harold Fair 5th, Mike Eddy 6th, 7th is Dave Watson and Benson back to the 8th position, but the battle to the checkered will be between these 3 drivers.
And remember, Leighton Reese will be the best through the slower section of the racetrack. There is oil between corners 1 and 2 as the leaders move their way through it. Spin in corner number 2, Sauter's around. Leighton Reese is almost on top of him. With all the smoke, we can't tell if Reese got through or not. Jimmy Spencer seems to have gotten through with no problem. Leighton Reese survived. Remember, we told you there was oil between 1 and 2. Jay Sauter is out of it. Does Leighton Reese have enough time to catch Jimmy Spencer?
Wow, everything happening the last 2 laps. It's Jay Sauter coming out in 3rd position with the damage to it right in front of the 4th running car number 52 of Butch Miller. Sauter battling to hold on to 3rd. We'll go back to the front now. It's Jimmy Spencer, and with that altercation between Reese and Sauter, it may be Jimmy Spencer's race. Spencer may be able to relatively coast home. He drops the right side off the pavement. Not a really good thing to do, even on the last lap. But the time is run out, it appears, on Leighton Reese. And for the second time in as many years, it looks like Leighton Reese is going to be the runner-up in an ASA race on a road course. Jimmy Spencer, the interloper from the south, he rounds corner number 8, corner number 9. This is the last straightaway between this and home. Although there's one more corner he has to execute. The brakes have been smoking. Spencer easier on the brakes this time. Jimmy Spencer is going to win this American Speed Association race. Leighton Reese really tries to apex that corner. Not enough time, and Spencer wins it. Spencer sideways down the main straightaway, flashes past the start-finish line, and he wins his ASA AC-Delco Challenge Series debut. Congratulations up and down pit road. That's the crew. That was Howie Leddow in the navy blue jacket. He told us yesterday that Jimmy Spencer, despite his hard-charging reputation, was the most articulate driver that he'd ever worked with, Larry, in terms of providing him with feedback necessary to set that car up. And Leighton is going to drive down there now, and I'm sure with mixed emotions, congratulate the victor. You can still see the oil slick around corner number 1 and corner number 2. It's a bit unfortunate that this could not have been decided at the full song for all 3 of the drivers. But we knew that there was oil deposited on those first 2 turns from Johnny Benson's misfortune. And Jimmy Spencer, the veteran driver of all those modified miles and those Winston Cup miles and the big tracks, executed the slippery racetrack and wins in Brainerd. The 1993 AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it wins, it works. And by Mr. Goodwrench, the GM expert at participating GM dealerships. And by Armor All. There is a fountain of youth, and we own the patent. For the second year in a row, Jerry Gunderman's Wisconsin Aviation team has won the road race on the American Speed Association circuit. There is one more road course, and speaking of Jerry Gunderman, that's him squeezed into that car on the left side. He was picked up out on course by Jimmy Spencer, and I think there was a bit of a longer ride around the 3 miles of Brainerd than what he anticipated, and Jerry had to kind of wedge himself in there to make it safe at all. But Gunderman, for the second year in a row, escorts his car into victory lane. Jimmy Spencer, of course, the race winner. Leighton Reese, second year in a row, he is runner-up. Jay Sauter, after that last lap spin, comes home 3rd. Butch Miller, very consistent, in 4th. And Harold Fair, he had the cleanest day of everyone, I would suggest. He was 5th. He sure was. Finishing in 6th position was Randy McDonald. 7th was Mike Eddy, just a consistent ride all day. 8th was Dave Watson. Brett Bell finishing 9th, and rounding out the top 10, a career best for Dr. Yale Conley. And now down to the victory lane celebration, where Ralph is standing by with a surprise winner this afternoon.
Well, I don't think I've seen you smile this big in a long time, Jimmy Spencer. But now he was trying to make you hold up back there. How tough was that for you in the early stages?
Well, I'll tell you something. The crew did a heck of a job, you know. I knew I had a good race car all weekend. Jerry Gunnerman gave me a heck of a race car, Carl Wagner, Goodyear tires. The key was to stay on the racetrack today, and we knew all weekend we had a real good race car, and the crew kept telling me, slow down, just be patient. And even when they were catching me, I was still taking it easy, cooling my tires, waiting for the last lap, and luck would have it, we didn't have a shootout.
And then you pick up your car owner on the backstretch. Where'd you find him at?
Hey, man, he was over there having a couple brews. You know how it is. You know how these car owners are. But I guess I can't believe it up here in Minnesota. I've been treated really great. First time ever in an ASA car, and a heck of a car. I just got to thank Scott Hansen, all the guys, Goodyear, ASA. They've treated me really, really good.
Does that mean we can see you back here soon?
I hope so.
Jimmy Spencer, the big winner here at Brainerd.
Well, Jimmy Spencer, he's got a tremendous amount of experience. As we told you, this is by our best count, and these are his best count. 7th time on a road course, but he really performed admirably today.
And you know, the oval trackers, the regular ASA guys, though they didn't show up in the top 2 in the final analysis here this afternoon, they were contenders all day long.
Very, very impressive, particularly Benson and Sauter. Now, there was a lot that went on in the last few minutes of this race. Now, here is the last lap. There is Leighton Reese trying to move to the inside of Jay Sauter. This is the last lap of the race. No room there. And then they come together. Now, we don't know if it was the cars. I see no marks on the side of the car. There was oil down there. We knew that. Here's another look at it. Now, Ralph, we understand you're standing down in victory lane with Leighton. Maybe you can fill us in a little bit on this incident as we watch it.
Leighton, tell me about the incident down in turns 1 and 2.
Well, we're both on ragged tires. The track was real slippery. It's a high-speed corner, and he was just trying to protect his line. I was trying to get under him, and we came together. Nothing intentional. I feel sorry for those guys. I would never do something like that on purpose, but it was a great race.
Had to be a very scary moment for Jay Sauter. That's the one part of the racetrack that the drivers most feared coming into this racing weekend. Jay stayed right on the throttle, Larry. You can see him under power and back up onto the race course.
It really is ironic. Before we came here this weekend, that's a close-up look at Leighton Reese, the road racer, business entrepreneur from the Twin Cities area. I feared corner number 2 the most, and here we are. We go all the way to the last minute of the race before anything happens down there. To victory lane with Jay Sauter.
Jay, give us your explanations of what took place down in turns 1 and 2 from your viewpoint.
Well, I guess Leighton got into the back end of me a little bit. Jimmy Spencer was on the high side. I was on the low side coming through 2 there, and I just got hit from behind and sent off the end of the racetrack. Very fortunate to gather it up. You know, we appreciate Donlinger Chevrolet locally coming on board for sponsorship, Delco Voyager. The crew put a good car under me today, and we just didn't get victory lane.
Different viewpoints between 2nd and 3rd.
A rather stern Jay Sauter. We don't very often see that kind of calmness from him at the end of a race like that, especially with a 3rd place finish.
And honestly, I don't know that I can agree with that viewpoint this particular time. It didn't look like he got belted in the tail to me at all.
I thought he did.
It was, well, you...
Tapped, not belted.
Well,
There's
we've got to show both sides here. Once again, unofficial results. Back to that in a second, if there's time. Spencer Reese Sauter documented those guys, first 3. Butch Miller has got to be very pleased. His return to ASA. He's had a 3rd place and a 4th place in his 2 visits back. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Harold Fair was 5th. Randy McDonald, the road racer he is with all that experience in the sedans up in Canada, was 6th. Mike Eddy, steady day 7th. Dave Watson stayed on course. Lots of Trans Am experience. Helped him out today. He was 8th. Brett Bell coming from California to finish 9th. And Dr. Yale Conley, a 10th place. Spectacular finish for the doc from the mountains of West Virginia.
He really has struggled on the ovals, but looked very strong all weekend on the road course. Found his element, perhaps.
Maybe so. Maybe he ought to be a Trans Am driver. I'm not saying that he should not be an ASA driver, but there is a real art to running on road courses. You got to be happy and surprised as an old ASA-er at your guys what they did on the road course.
Absolutely, but disappointment for Johnny Benson, who expected to leave here with a cushion on his lead in the points over Mike Eddy. It is gone.
So the points even get closer as we head to the next race at Calgary. Remember, we've got several more live ASA races on TNN. So for Ralph Shaheen down on the pits, Rob Albright up here in the booth, our congratulations to Jimmy Spencer, the winner on the road course here in Brainerd. We'll see you the next time at the races.